everybody. This is the Auburn Finance Committee. Today is March 11th, 2026. I'm calling the meeting to order. Allow me to read the open remote participation script. This open meeting of the Town of Auburn Finance Committee is being conducted both in person and remotely, consistent with Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022, which suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed to participate remotely as long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. For the public to join the meeting remotely by telephone, dial 1-408-650-3123 and enter access code 983-263-437. Or the public can join via computer at meet.goto.com/Auburn Select Board Room. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the town's website. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. Please note that this meeting is being recorded by Auburn Cable Television. Is there anyone else recording the meeting? Seeing none. There is nobody appearing remotely this evening, so we are good with doing a roll call relative to that. We have a couple transfers to start off our agenda this evening. First one on the agenda is from the fire department, and this is I think it may have been out of order in our packet, but there was only two, so I'm sure you'll find it easily. This is from the salary reserve fund, going to firefighter salary account, amount requested $133,000. Reason given on here is cost of union contract settlement. Aaron, do you want to give us an update? I thought we were sort of beyond the settlements. I thought we had everything accounted for, but this one was still outstanding, is that?
Yes, that's correct. This one was still outstanding. The deputy chief and I worked on this, made sure we had our numbers reconciled, and this is the amount to fulfill for the contract settlement.
Any questions on this one, Michael?
So I just went and looked, and for 2026, we appropriated $480,000 for salary reserve. How much of that have we transferred out of salary reserve? The numbers on the summary budget, I'm assuming, or the in the budget book, I hope are not right, because it looks like we've already expended $479 as of February 17th. And if that's true, we would obviously be way over for the year. So again, just, do you know how much we've spent?
I do. Yeah, I have the balances. Out of the $480,000 that was appropriated, $189,431 was transferred. So the balance before the 133 is $290,569.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Motion to approve.
Second.
No additional questions on this one? So we have.
I'm really sick of the $100,000 transfers coming from fire, so I really just want to move on the budget tonight. And I'm disappointed that the fire chief isn't here, even though we had some kind of pre-warning of this. Everything's $100,000 every couple of months, so I just really want to move on with the rest of the meeting.
Okay. No other comments? We do have a motion to approve?
We got a second.
We have a second. Okay, we have a motion, a second? Was it, yours was not additional, okay.
Right to Patrick, no.
Aren't we all? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. One additional transfer, this one is from DPW Sewer Division. This is a regular interdepartmental transfer going to from building maintenance, going to heating oil, amount $63.47, reason to cover overage of heating oil is how it's phrased.
Motion to approve.
Motion, we have a motion to approve? And a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Those are the only two transfers we have this evening. Tonight and tonight only is DPW and all DPW. They saved a night. Right?
Yeah.
You look like you had some thoughts.
Is it, through the chair, if I could?
Absolutely.
The agenda has the transfer at 6447. And I think you said 6347. I just wanted to double check the amount.
So on the transfer, it says 6.3, and then on the agenda, it says 6.
Okay, so the transfer is correct, 6347. Yep, thank you.
Joanna, could I just interrupt one moment? I did mention to the town manager before we get started, I apologize. So I did have a question, and as I'm sort of slowly digesting the budget and kind of reviewing some of the stuff week to week, I did have a question relative to this year. We were able to take, I think it was 2.3 million from free cash and apply it towards the budget, which has allowed us to stay below the 2.5% threshold. However, and I think that was a smart move, and it was based on questions as to how much we were keeping in that account and fiscal policies and a lot of good reasons to utilize that money. My concern, I think, as I digest this and as we see asks for, when we see these changes between department heads and what they've requested and what has been agreed upon, your recommendations, is what does the future bring? Should next year we are not in a position to apply monies from free cash towards budgets, what does that look like for us? And my concern is that, as we look and people are asking for additional positions, are we going to be able to sustain that moving forward in future years? And I apologize for sort of just throwing this, but it's been, as I've reviewed this week, it's sort of been weighing on me a little bit.
No, that's okay. Through the chair, it's a great question, and it's something that I think about all the time, and I know Karen does as well. Our current request is sustainable as it relates to the operating budget. We will not be able to use free cash in the future to supplement the capital budget. So what we're doing this year is we have additional expenditures in the capital budget, you'll see it in the CIP, that we won't be able, it's not going to be sustainable for the future. We have 13 million in our free cash. It made sense to use a portion of that versus borrowing and paying interest charges, and much like our conversation that we had with the fire station. But we are developing financial policies. We have them in place, but we are updating them with DLR and working with them to determine best practices on free cash stabilization, when to use it, when not to use it. I did yesterday, because I do think about this all the time, I went online. If you go on the state website, you can look up everyone's free cash for every town in Massachusetts for the past 10 years. Well, there I was going through every town. And I think we're in a good place, but I know for a fact we cannot use $2.9 million in free cash next year. It's just not possible. What's going to happen is as costs continue to rise, well, first of all, we're going to try to mitigate any increase in costs as much as we can, but we'll get closer to the 2.5%. I was able this year to stay below it somewhat because of the use of free cash. And if you notice under the CIP, especially for DPW, I was able to move the funds for the roadway from tax levy into CIP. And I did that because I have the free cash. Next year, I may not do that. And it all depends on the cost of what we need to do for roadway work, what we get for Chapter 90, because we're getting another allotment for Chapter 90, and what we have for growth. We do have very conservative estimates on our revenue, and we want to keep it that way because we don't ever want to run short on the revenue side. So because we're doing that, I'm comfortable moving forward with the recommendation to FinCom this year. But you're absolutely right. We need to watch it constantly throughout the year, and what's going to be sustainable for next year, I can tell you right now, we cannot use $2.9 million of free cash next year. It's just not going to be possible, which means our capital budget will be less.
Questions relative to that, just something that's been on.
I have a question on the coattails of that. Being someone who's had years on the Finance Committee and has a background in it and observing the behavior in Auburn, and I mean the fiscal behavior, we are somewhat conservative, but there are years where we go 2 or 3 years. We're over at 2, we're at 1.5. Sometimes we've even managed to not go to 2.5, and the taxpayers appreciate that because one of the things that we have to keep in mind is the broad base of taxpayers that we have. The homes, I understand values are going up. The average home, it's all moving east, and I know it's expensive. But one of the challenges that I think this administration has to give some thought to going forward, and I include the Board of Selectmen because they're the group that work with you to set some of those goals, is that we can't keep going to 2.5 every single year. In the last 5 years, we've gone up $10 million. We've only had, maybe in the last decade, 1,000 new tax bills, maybe if we're lucky, maybe 800. So in communities that are only 15 or 16,000 people versus other communities that have 30 or 40,000 taxpayers in their realm, they have a lot more access. And I think one of the things that why I wanted to speak is because we have put attention into an economic development. We know we have properties in town that, we might be getting some relief from them because they're paying taxes, but they're certainly not marketed or giving us the value that they can. However, what they can do is they can say, given the base of people that are paying into the tax revenue for the town, as we try to shift from, that whether we go to commercial and residential, there's a lot of moving parts, but I don't think the answer is to continue. And I think I completely understand that, that we were very wise and we needed to be fiscally prudent not to use that towards our operating budget. But I don't know that we can keep going to 2.5 every single year. It's just not, I don't think it's fair to the taxpayers. So I just wanted to mention that we have some challenges because the services in town, everything's getting really expensive. I see both sides of it, but I'd like to think that we're going to be creative in the revenue sources that we have and the ability for the town to understand that. And I'll just be, just as bold to say it, but you can't expect some of the employees, as much as we don't want to lose to training and retention and having them move on. We can't pay salaries where communities that we could lose them to have a much stronger tax base to pay them another 10 or 20 or 30. And I have to say this because, if I spent my whole career building my knowledge and working because I was worried of just about the paycheck I got and not the job I did, I don't know that I would have arrived where I've arrived. But I know it's a different world today. I know today it's on first and foremost, it's, people will just jump ship and move to another place because they pay more. And I've really wanted to go on record to say if it's going to be more important to you for you to drive your career that way, more power to you. But I don't think we want you in Auburn. I just want to recognize that I think from back to Julie, through Ed to yourself, I thought you did an incredible job with what you inherited. And I know you're fiscally competent. It's not about all of that. But I just think that there are times in the past where this town has had to make some really tough decisions and give the taxpayers a break. And I've seen a huge increase in the budget in the last 10 years. And I watched it go from 86 to 91 with free cash. So I'm not saying anything that's not on record. So.
Anything else?
No.
Thank you. No problem. Joanne, I apologize. Chair that sinks to the bottom, or are you all set?
I'm used to being short, it's fine.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Did you want to give a presentation on your budget, or how would you like to?
So I don't have a presentation, I have a couple of slides that kind of explain where I am, but, I mean, it's
I'd like to proceed. We're
okay. So if we could, are we doing the budget and the CIP at the same time, or?
We've usually been going through the budgets first, and then CIP items, we've sort of been touching on them, and you probably have some, so I assume we'll touch upon those at the end of the
Great, thank you. So, actually, the first, my first division is engineering and stormwater, and that, I mean, the biggest difference is the roadways, which everybody typically wants to hear about anyways. So I prepared a little spreadsheet shown up above, and it shows the current funding sources. And then what I had requested to get us to that 20-year plan with 4.5 miles of roadways paved per year. And then what we've been able to, what we could afford to do for next year that's presented in the budget. So in the engineer's budget, you'll see that there's a decrease in roadway reconstruction from $507,000 to $150,000. And so that's been shifted over more towards CIP. So even though that's been decreased in the budget, the overall sum isn't decreased. And I can explain a little bit further. So the Chapter 90 funds, I kept them the same. I'm not really sure. I haven't really heard anything about the supplemental funding. The 920 somewhat thousand that we just received a letter from the state that although it's not, it hasn't been voted on yet, it hasn't been passed yet, our apportionment would be 923,488,000. So that's less than this, but I'm not sure if we would get the supplemental funding that we did last year.
Do you know where we started last year compared to where we ended up? So how that 923 relates to?
So that would be that original, so we were around that same mark last year, and then the difference was the supplemental funding that we received. And I haven't heard anything about the supplemental funding. So, so as you can see, this year, we had enough funds to reconstruct the equivalent of 3.1 miles. That wasn't done just because even though I'm calling it roadway reconstruction, there's a lot of drainage funding that we've always included in our roadway projects because as we do our roads, we're also reconstructing all of our drainage infrastructure wherever it's needed or adding new drainage infrastructure. And this year, there were several areas in town that we were just purely doing drainage because we were having issues.
Can you clarify that? So you're saying we spent the equivalent of what it would cost to repave or reconstruct 3.1 miles, but we're getting, I'm assuming, less than that?
So yes, so we paved about 2 miles last year. And then the remaining portion was appropriated towards drainage improvements. So there were some major drainage improvements off-site on Meadowbrook, off of Meadowbrook Road, as well as on Meadowbrook Road. We're going to be doing some drainage improvements. The contractor ran out of time, so he's going to be continuing in the spring on Packagug Street. And then there were some additional drainage that was added on, I think, Chestnut.
So similar to that question, on a roadway project, it's not, when you're talking about redoing a roadway by miles, it's largely how much asphalt repaving, but it's not including the drainage component.
So I based these numbers on $130 per linear foot. And that's our average costs for our previous contract. And we included drainage in our previous contract. So even though, our contract is made up of a few pages of itemized, it's an itemized list. So, so instead of, just purely basing it on asphalt, because there's so many other components in that contract, everything's itemized. We basically just looked at the average cost, which also includes the drainage.
But I couldn't do,
So we've had to just, is what we're saying that we've done 2 miles of like everything and then
Additional,
the funding equivalent to a mile of roads just to fix drainage issues?
correct.
I think like, it's gonna be similar, so do my own math, I couldn't take 131 and figure out how far we were gonna get this year, because there's drainage costs along the way, varying on, depending on the roadway, on how many catch basins there are and things of that nature.
Right, so it's an average. So if we were looking at, so the projected costs or the projected miles, the 4.5 miles and the 3.5 at the bottom of the chart would include drainage improvements.
But only in places where you're reconstructing the road, not
Right.
any unforeseen other drainage issues, of which I'm sure we have at least a few that you're aware of.
Correct, and I know that, so one of our roads that is on the list this year is South Street between Central and Route 20, and that's very drainage heavy. There's a lot of drainage there, so that's.
So we're not going to get anywhere close to 3.5, that's what you're saying? Not to be like negative about it, but
It depends, well, we're actually, maybe just because we're also milling and overlaying Auburn Street, so there's no drainage there at all.
how many miles are in town of roads that we are responsible for? 90 miles? Okay. So even, sorry, go ahead.
But I was just gonna say, so largely, based on the time frame since some of these roads have been redone, do you find that almost all of them are in need of drainage work as well?
I think most of
Catch
the,
basins start to deteriorate, just like a roadway deteriorates, right, based on water and travel over them and.
most of them, so historically, a lot of times the highway department would actually construct catch basins. So they actually built them out of barrel block. Those are the ones that typically just deteriorate and fall apart, and that's what's sinking. Right now, we're replacing those with precast structures that have much better longevity. In the past, corrugated metal pipe was used, and if we see corrugated metal, we're replacing it just because we know that it's not lasting, and most likely the bottom of the pipe is gone.
But you're not surprised when you go to a roadway to review it for, you just gave the example south between Central and Route 20. You're not gonna be surprised that most of those drainages are probably gonna need some attention, if not all.
Yes, and we try not to be surprised during construction because we've already looked inside the structures. When we did Otis Street, that was when I realized that we never can trust a metal pipe just because we thought that the pipe was fine, and we cameraed it. We actually put a camera down, and it looked good, except for the ends. The ends, by like a visual inspection, looked like they were deteriorated. Once the contractor started digging it up, what we thought was the corrugation at the bottom of the pipe was actually just the gravel imprint of where the pipe used to be.
Just last year at this time and the year before at this time, we talked about getting return on the work that the DPW does. Unfortunately, the product and everything has changed over time, and when we work on our roads, we just don't get the same return on the asphalt and all of the effort that goes into it. It diminishes each year. So this is just showing the trend.
We're doing our best to make sure that, we don't have the water issues, so addressing the drainage.
No, it's not.
definitely-
It's not for lack of efforts or knowledge on our end. It's what's available to us in the marketplace. And I know I've heard other people that have commutes and they'll go down a road and, it was paved 3 years ago, and that same road now, it looks like it did before it got paved because of so much traffic over 3 years. It just couldn't sustain. So, and Auburn's no different, right?
We do have, there's a lot of variables, but yeah, we have so much traffic in town. And I'm seeing some differences, from different streets, depending on the gravel underneath. If it's very fine material, it just traps water, so the frost heaves are just gonna, after a couple of years, it just falls apart.
Just, since you brought that up, I know we have to put out to bid, but do you assess the work of the contractors going forward? So if you see, like you just said, 2 years in and there's already a road that was just done starting to deteriorate, do we inspect the work as it's done to ensure the right base is put down, is there an ability to inspect the mix? I know sometimes the mixes can vary from plant to plant, just to ensure that there's, a lot of money and effort being expended because the taxpayers are, this is one of their number one things is, where is my road on the list? I mean, every year they look for and then they get, at a minimum, disappointed that they're not on the list. Is that a good way of saying it?
Yeah.
At a minimum.
That they're not on the list. So it's clearly, but if we're going to expend the money, we want to ensure that that roadway is going to last, because if you do plan, it's going to be a long time before they could potentially get back on the list to have it redone. So I guess
Yes.
my question is, the bidding process, do we ensure that it's being done well? Do we ensure that we like the mix that's being put down? Is there a quality control to ensure we're getting the most out of that purchase?
So, yeah, so we have, we get the slips from the actual plant, so we know what we're bringing, what was put down. Whenever any pavement is put down, we have one of our employees on site to inspect it as it's getting put down. And that actually brings me to one of the line items that we had requested, and we were lucky to be able to fund, we have the part-time wages in the engineer's line item, the $12,000. So we're hoping to get an intern over the summer that would free up one of our engineers to be able to oversee some of the other projects and do some of the more in-office construction admin, and have a junior level engineer that's still in college. They would have a little bit more experience, but they can also quantify what's being put down and see, measure the depth as it's going down, make sure that they're.
Who's doing the quality control? The intern or the experienced engineer is going to?
So the intern, so the college, the college engineer student, they would be on the site. That's basically a making of a good engineer, is like the construction experience. If I want to be, just looking at plans, you want to be able to see the construction. But it's not something that's, very difficult to measure, because they can measure the thickness, and with a list of instructions that we have, they could, they have a checklist of what to look
The
for.
tutelage, hopefully, of somebody more senior that can
Right.
show them what pea stone is compared to.
Absolutely. And
Sure. Trevor, did you have a question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, just in totality, obviously, we're talking about plan, obviously, year, 20-year plan, and, missing marks last year. Potentially, we're talking about high drainage areas where we may not lose mileage this year. How are we doing on staying on track with that? Are we concerned that we're not gonna be able to make that, or, what's kind of the current progress on that plan, and do we still feel confident we can manage it? Are we are we going towards like big dig territory where we're talking?
so, in 2011, around about that timeframe, the 20-year paving plan was introduced, and through there were some supplemental things that happened. The state had some projects, so we were able to kind of start off with we had a good start. I remember we had planned on paving Vine Street, and as part of the state project, they paved it. So we didn't need to expend the funds at that time. Since then, the amount of roads that we've been able to do has been decreasing. Because the prices have gone up, we've gotten more Chapter 90 funds, that's gone up, but not at the rate of the increase in prices. So where we were, what the plan was to pave 4 miles of road, we were paving, 3 to 2, last year was 2.
Like, doesn't really answer the question in terms of like, if it's 90 miles that you said we're responsible for, in over the 20 years, we're planning to do all 90 miles, where you said 2011, so we're 15 years into that, so
So we're definitely behind on,
I guess that's kind of is, where are we at up, and how much more do we have left, and how long do we think, because obviously the expectation if we're behind isn't going to be that it all gets done in the next 5 years, so where,
so I'm looking at it as a rolling, the lifespan of a pulverized road is about 25 years, where you don't want, to go much further than that. Typically, some roads just, they stay great for longer than that, and some deteriorate a lot faster, but an average of 20 years. So we're gonna have, worse, roads that are in worse condition, and it's gonna take us longer to get to that, get to them in that amount of time. So even though it's, we planned on having all the roads done in 20 years, and then after 20 years, we're back to doing the same roads again, it's gonna be stretched out more.
do you have a number as to where we're at, or is that information that you'd be of that, I mean, if someone were to go back to, say, to 2011 and look and say, how, like, get us the progress on where we're at, and so we can see that.
I
My-
apologize.
I think he's asking, if you don't mind, I think he's asking how many miles have we paved since 2011?
I apologize, I don't have that sheet on me, but I can definitely forward it over to the board.
My concern is that we bring it up in a vacuum year over year, and we're not looking at the big picture of it, and I understand there are circumstances and changes and things that have happened over time that result in that, it's, I don't ask as a criticism, but just as a way to just understand where we're at along the way, and we have, obviously as other departments and people are coming in, we're just trying to assess where everything's at, and I just would like to know that, so, when these big picture conversations are coming up about priority and things like that, we can look and say, this is something we committed to 15 years ago and we're still not there, so like, at what point do we start to say, that needs to come to the front of the, the front of the line, because we've fallen behind way too far, because like you mentioned, and obviously the math, if the math is doing what it's supposed to, we've got roads now that in 5 years are hitting that year mark, so we're going to start overlapping on stuff that fell apart, is starting to fall apart, that was a part of the original plan. And
Right.
Well, and that also assumes that, like, the roads were only 20 years old at the point which they got
Right.
fixed,
Right, but
which
that's
isn't
what I'm
true
saying.
either. So,
In a
yeah,
perfect- I'm
we're
saying in a
going to fall way. So what I'll just say is, and I know I'm 99% sure this came up at the select board because one of the selectmen told me he brought it up. But like, you requested the ability to pave 4.5 miles in theory, right? That's 1/20th of a 20-year plan if we're responsible for 90 miles. Last year we did 2. It hasn't been 4.5, I'm guessing, since 2015, like, if that.
Probably more like 2011.
Yeah, 2011.
We were-
So we're already probably significantly behind, and the roads are only getting older. And so, like, not to put too fine a point on it, we either need to find more money to pave our roads, or they're never going to get better than they are right now. They're always going to get worse, because we're always going to be more than 20 years behind on every single road. And so, like, that really is the issue, right? Like, people are already mad that there are potholes on their street, and they're only going to be more. They're already mad that a catch basin is either needs to be ripped out or is just flooding their street or whatever else it is. That's only going to get worse. And even 4.5 wouldn't get us to a 20-year plan. And on top of that, it sounds like every year out of the 4.5, we have to pull some money and say, actually, this needs to go to drainage because that drainage is bad, or this needs to go to this project. So like, we should be aiming for 5 or 6 miles a year so that we can get to 90 miles over the course of 20 years, because we're not going to get, even if we budgeted 4.5, we're not going to get to 90 in 20 years. It's not going to happen, based on what you're telling me. Like that, you can't expect it to get better.
No, it's-
So,
It's not going to get better. At this point, the majority of our roadway work is pulverizing it. We're doing mill and overlay just so that we can keep Auburn Street up to St. Joe's Hill, in still looking good.
also, just to be clear, like, this is not a criticism of you or the budget you requested. Like, it's to the same point, like, to talk about the sort of global issue and people get upset when their taxes go up. If anyone is watching, like, if you don't pay more taxes, the roads will continue to get worse. That's a fact. So, like, I agree. I would love for my taxes to go down. I'd love to not pay taxes. That would be wonderful. That's not how the world works. Services increase in cost, and we are already probably 5 to 10 years behind on a 20-year plan, and we're now underfunding the 20-year plan. That's not your problem. It is what it is. The budget is a zero-sum game, and we can't also have police and fire and schools that are up to snuff if we pull money from one thing or the other. But like, either people need to change their expectations, we need to have a different plan that's more realistic based on what we expect to fund, or people need to accept that like the cost of living in this town is going to continue to go up, and there's no in between.
There's always an alternative.
What's the alternative? If it costs
Not necessarily for the people in this room.
No, hold on. If
But-
I-
but there is a-
Let Stephen go. Thank you.
We have this prevailing wage law, and we have the most expensive state in the country, and the state is paying a
But it's the
major
law,
share
Steve.
of the law, of the roads, and they're also setting the prevailing wage. So it's not hard to figure out who is creating the extra high expenses. We've literally embodied it into the law that says we have to pay $100 and $130 a foot, when we could just as easily be paying $60 a foot. If the State House was paying.
Just to respond,
1/10 of
though,
the attention that they should be
there's
doing.
2 issues with that.
Michael, hold
They're
on.
not.
Patrick?
If I could, through the chair, and Mike, you make an excellent point, but we have prevailing wage, but we also have union contracts, we have payroll percentages that every year there's increases.
And none of those are the purview of the finance committee,
Well,
so
no,
we
I'm not
we
saying
shouldn't
that.
talk about
No,
it.
but what I
It's not our-
can't
it's
say.
not our- it's not our
No,
business.
No, you don't have to tell me as a finance committee member what I can or can't talk about. And what I'm saying is that there's a lot more things that go on in this town, whether it's health benefits, whether it's payroll, there are expenses. And our taxpayers, I can talk about it because the taxpayers go to payroll, just like the tax dollars go to roads. So to my peer's point, Steve, and to the point of the money, I'm an independent person. I live in a home. I have a fixed income. I have to put food in my mouth. I have to pay for my mortgage. I have to pay my utilities in its simplest form. If there were 8 of us that lived on the street, those 8 people would have to pay the payroll for the town. We'd have to pay our water bill. We would have to pay for our roads. So I can talk about it in the sense that, and to quote a selectman who did say during the budget process, that I guess sometimes I'd rather forgo a cost of living increase and know that I didn't have to lay anybody off. And that I had 3 people to help me do my job instead of 1, because, so payroll is on the table, not for any other reason that is done, it is a part of the taxpayer base. And to Steve's point, at some point, we have to think about the allocation of our money. It just like payroll, the streets and everything else are a part of an expense. That's how I'm recognizing it. It's an expense to the taxpayer, so I can talk about it.
Mike?
I apologize for saying you shouldn't talk. I'm not trying to say you can't talk about a specific topic. What I'm trying to say is we have a a purpose as a finance committee. It is not to opine on state law. Prevailing wage is the law of the state. I don't want to talk about it because it's not worth talking about. We can't pay less than it, so don't bring it up, is how I feel.
I think
And maybe I am
think the
saying don't talk
state
about it, so
works
I
for
apologize.
us.
But
We don't work for the state.
not for me, like, not as a finance committee member. Like, we're here to talk about the Auburn Town budget, and the Auburn Town budget says we have to spend $130 to pave a linear foot. We have not given ourselves enough money to pave 4.5 miles. We are falling behind on the plan. As far as the union contracts goes, listen, again, I don't think it is our purview to get into the negotiation of union contracts. None of us are labor attorneys. None of us are the town manager or the managers of the people who are in the union. Like, these are great topics, not for a finance committee meeting. Go to select board, make a public comment. Our purview right now is we raise X amount of dollars, how do we spend them in town? I love the soapbox stuff, and I agree with 99% of the things that you guys say. That's not what this meeting is for. And I'm a little frustrated that we keep getting bogged down on topics that are like massive, world-changing ideas, which I would love to see. But this is the Auburn Town Finance Committee. We do not have the ability to change the prevailing wage law. The only option we have on union contracts is, do we fund them to pay them, or do we get sued by the union when we don't? Like, those are our choices. So, like, again, our focus as our commit, like, we don't set the tax rate, we don't set the prevailing wage, we haven't negotiated the union contracts. We get a top line number and a bottom line number, and we have to try to make them match.
Trevor?
Who are you afraid of now, Trevor? All of us.
Everyone, all sides. Just to round us back out, I don't want to, but obviously we're in the middle of the budget and that's the priority at the moment, but in the near future, do you think that we could just get some sort of summary on kind of where we line in the project? Maybe kind of I don't want to say plan A, plan B, plan C, but some sort of like, where could we adjust this to realign? Is it possible for us to get back into some sort of, where, a couple narratives so that we can kind of just start to think about that in the grand scheme of things on, to Mike's point, like, do we have to start being aggressive in trying to prioritize and fund this? Do we start to restructure the plan and say, we're gonna reevaluate how we're doing it? I think obviously it's a discussion we need to start having. And I think that we're getting into the habit of just looking at it year by year. We're already so far away from where we're at that we've stopped thinking about it. So I just like to try and get us back on level footing from a financial perspective on what we need to start thinking about. I guess because it's like we're almost not even prioritizing it at all because we're so far gone from the original plan that it's like we're throwing it in there, but we're going to move stuff. And I'd like to get us back to where we can budget for something that we're actually going to talk about.
Mr. Sansucci?
Yeah.
Is your microphone light on? Green?
Right.
Oh, then you can't. That's why I wasn't able to pick you up, so this has to be green.
I promise I didn't say anything that profound. But
No one can, I couldn't get the sound from.
yeah,
Sorry.
no, just to circle us back, can we in the near future and readdress after budget season, just kind of a reevaluation of the plan and where we can go from here so that we can start to realign the budgeting for future years and things into something that actually aligns with what we can accomplish rather than projecting for something that we're already out of the scope of. That's all.
I'm just going to add to Trevor's, just quickly, and I'll.
And then I have to add to Trevor too, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Just to Trevor's point, if we would have to go, if we were to, I know we're not through the budget season, but if we were to go out to bid today, obviously the cost of oil is, we watch the news, is going up, and asphalt is a largely oil-based product. We wouldn't even get to that 4.5 miles of roadway. We already would be back to 4.3 or something like that. So to Trevor's point, we're continually like sliding backwards. We're never really getting ahead of the process. So I'm just supporting what Trevor
It
said.
just feels like we're putting you in front of us in a situation, like we're putting you're trying to meet a standard that we already know you're not going to hit. And then you get up here and we're kind of like, it's like a public stoning where we're like getting upset about it not being met. And I think we just need to
Kevin has a hammer.
And then the public gets disappointed, right, when their road doesn't get.
I think what I wanted to add to Trevor and through the chair is that when you lose that, so if you say you want to do 5 and you only get 3.5, you've just increase the cost of that road that you didn't do for 1.5 because you've got the other 5 here that you never got to, and now this road's going to cost you because we know expense rises. So I think what you'll find is something you might want to watch is that as you look at what's not gotten taken care of, you want to exponentially, just to make your case, say now it's going to cost us this much more 4 years from now to get to this because we didn't get to it when we did. So it's almost like paying additional interest on a borrowing because you didn't borrow at the right time. So just as a strategy or something to keep in mind when you're trying to gather all this information, I think of the missed opportunity, the opportunity cost of not being able to get to it in a timely fashion.
And we use that same logic when we were talking about the fire station building, was if we wait, if we put it off for
Right.
this much more, the building costs historically go up X percentage, and I'm sure you see the same with the, cost of building roadways are just it's just gonna get more expensive as the longer we wait, so. Michael?
I have one last request, and it's not for any time in the next month or so. My new thing is asking department heads to talk to like similar communities and see how we're doing compared to them for both a staffing and like a budgetary point of view. I would be very curious to know, surrounding towns, are they paying a similar amount per linear foot? Like, is that our number, but Millbury is saying it's 150, or Oxford's saying it's 110? And like, are they on 20-year plans? Is that, you may know some of the answers to this, and I don't want to act like I don't know. But like, is a 20-year plan reasonable? Are any communities anywhere close to hitting a 20-year plan? My guess is no. But I don't know. So if that's something that you can sort of start that conversation about, I know that this is going to come up at town meeting. So like, having that information will be super helpful.
Absolutely.
Town manager, do you want to?
Hi, this is a great conversation. It is something Joanna and I have talked about in depth for hours. The 2011 plan was no longer a plan as of 2012. And we're trying to keep up with that. We're trying to keep the 2.5% lower than 2.5. We're trying to keep our borrowing costs low, because we have a lot of people in the town of Auburn with a fixed income. We are trying to balance all of it, and I really appreciate, Trevor, you said it the best, is that Joanna's not here to get like stoned, but sometimes it feels like that, and I appreciate, oh, I shouldn't have said it that way. Like a stoning.
It just took a giggle. I'm sorry.
That was really good. A stoning. I shouldn't have, the second I said it. Anyways, I appreciate you saying that, because it is hard on this side, and it's very hard on Joanna, it's hard on me as the town manager. We aren't getting there in regards to the roadways. We want to so bad, but we have a lot of restrictions, and it's, Kevin, you said it, if we went out to bid today, because of what's going on in the country and the cost of oil, again, it's going to throw everything off track. So I do appreciate the request for additional information, and I think, I know I've spoken to Joanna about this, providing the Board of Selectmen and FinCom with updates on things like this, because these are the things that are very important to our residents. Very important. They're important to me as I drive. Like, the roads are not great. I don't anticipate, some of them are great, some of them aren't. And we can only do so much with the money we have. Do we want to raise taxes? We don't. We do have over 9 million in unused tax levy. Do we want to touch that and tax our residents? We don't. We don't. But yet we do have a problem. So it is a balance. And I appreciate that you understand that from a town manager's point of view. It's a balance for me. I just didn't feel, and this isn't defensive, it's just so my position is said, I don't feel it's the right time to tax higher, like tax our residents higher. The economy and the fixed incomes, I am more concerned about, and being more creative, which was discussed earlier with revenue and businesses, and looking in that direction. And as we move forward in the next year with my new assistant, I'm hoping that we can increase revenue the way we should, so that we can actually take care of these issues. But it is a long-term plan that will be definitely tying in with the Finance Committee.
I really appreciate what you said. I want to say something, I don't know how to say it without it sounding the way it's going to sound, but now is not the time to increase taxes. The fact that we have 9 million in unused tax levy and we've saved the taxpayers, Ed used to give the number every year, and it's a very popular number. That's why we're in the situation we're in. That's why we have budgets that haven't increased in a long time, and department heads who are coming here and saying, I need 4 new police officers, and I need 8 new firefighters, and I need $5 million if I'm going to actually hit a 20-year plan on roads. And it's because now is not the time to hit 2.5. The time to hit 2.5 was when we were in a good economy, and we didn't. And many, like, to Patrick's point earlier, many communities have hit 2.5 every single year, every year. And I get that, like, our property values are going up. I would love to see someone run an analysis on whether our property values have gone up more than, like, the communities that are taxing at 2.5, because I sort of doubt it. We live in a popular spot next to the second largest city in New England. Like, it's gonna be expensive here. That's the truth. And
And it's a good community.
But we're in the budget hole we are in now, not because we've been fiscally irresponsible, but because it is very popular to keep taxes low, but keeping taxes low puts a ceiling on what you can spend money on. And if you don't spend the money, it will eventually happen no matter what. We're probably 25 to 30 miles behind our plan for 20 years. That means in the next 5 years, we'd have to pave 40 miles of road to hit the 20-year plan. It's not going to happen. Everybody knows that, and we're just acting like that's okay. Like, that's insane. We have $9 million in unused tax levy. I wish I had the number in front of me that Ed used to give every year, but we've saved the taxpayers of this town literally tens of millions of dollars over the last 20 years. And now everyone's mad that taxes are going up and services are getting worse. Like, that's, the reality is it's because we didn't spend the money. We could have been spending it. We could have been spending it for the last 15 years.
Trevor's been patiently waiting.
Yeah, I just, because this kind of came up and you're bringing up a good point, Mike, and it kind of curtails into some previous, because I had some emails back and forth last week too, and I think previously, in terms of also, we were keeping the tax dollar was trying to keep that number as low as possible for a long time. And in addition to that, and we've talked about kind of the change in the budget process this year, but I'm trying to caricaturize it a little bit, but Ed and the town department heads would kind of come in holding hands, and there was like these numbers that they agreed on and these plans that they agreed on, and it was all these things that kind of I think as a finance committee, I can only speak for myself, and I joke here that my attendance has not always been stellar, so maybe there's some things that I missed, but I think a lot of the, I don't want to say fallout in the budgets, but a lot of the shortfalls that maybe some of the departments had been feeling over time, and I don't, if they're watching at home or whatever, I don't mean to like throw them under the bus, years after the fact, but maybe some things that Ed and Julie over time had kind of said, we're going to get to that, and now, the chickens have come home to roost and we can't get to that with what we have. And I don't mean to put that blame on you or Karen or any of the department heads. And I appreciate you all coming here, and I used the phrase like singing for your supper a couple times in some, things where it's like, you're going to come and say, yeah, in a perfect world, I would have 5 more firefighters, 5 more policemen, the ability to double what we're putting for output on this, or whatever the case may be. And I appreciate everybody kind of coming here and speaking to where the fallouts are. And I think, yeah, we just need to get to a place where we can see all of that in front of us, because I think we're going to get into a situation where we're doing this all in a vacuum week by week. But we need to look at this after budget season and say, here are all the not misses, but here are all the places that we didn't meet what the department is telling us it is. Now we go back and look and say, okay, where do we start to prioritize these things long term? Where do we start to reevaluate that budget? But I guess in my quick closing, none of this is Joanna's fault. We're talking to a lot of bigger picture problems here. So I think I'd like to just kindly request that we all move back to the budget in front of us. And I think that post-budget season, this is something that as a finance committee, we all come back to and meet in a larger picture. Because I think we're kind of all, it's like when, you're
parents had a bad day at work and, one had a bad day at work, the other one had a bad day at work, the mortgage is due at the end of the week and then the kid comes home with like a C on their report card and they're just getting absolutely berated when it's not about the C in the first place. And I think we just need to get back to what Joanna has in front of us and then we can go back and handle all of our.
Yeah, we can. I just want, Steve had it right after yours, and then we'll get to yours back.
I just wanted to, well, two things. The thing that Mike said about, banking, not spending the full 2.5. The fact of the matter is, a lot of towns spend the full 2.5, and they have the same exact problems we're having today. Because the problem isn't what you spent yesterday, the problem's the economy of today, always. And whether you zig or you zag, you are going to regret both. The town employees are doing the best they can. Absolutely. The system does not work. And that, I mentioned this, I think, 2 weeks ago, we're way overdue for a complicated discussion. Not necessarily with the department heads, but like things are just seriously amiss. The two things I proposed last year were sort of trying to avoid these situations because it's obvious whether you zig or you zag, certain things are going to come back to bite you. And the only way to change it is to really change it. But we have a budget, we have to spend the money, people want to get paid, they want to get a raise every year, that's been the routine for probably 200 years. Unfortunately, it has really never worked for 200 years, but we keep trying to make it work. And the 20-year plan lasted 20 months. And if our pressure relief valve this year was the free cash. Well, next year, we're going to have more inflation, less free cash, presumably less help from the state or the federal government. So we can plan today for everything to get worse. So we can zig or zag today. We could save 2.5% by level funding everybody's wages, presumably. It's not going to affect road spending. It's not going to affect the insurance cost because that went up, a ton. But at the same time, on the flip side, we're a community of 15,000 people. We've got a budget of, close to $90 million. Our job really is not simply to worry about the roads and the schools, but also the financial health of the town. And that's a much vaguer thing than the tradition has been. The tradition has been to worry about just the town, the government of the town, as opposed to the whole town. What Patrick was saying is, or somebody said at the Board of Selectmen meeting, something like a third, maybe it was, I think a third of the people are in their 60s. So that means a third of the town is on fixed income. So the idea that everybody's going to, suck up the appreciation of the house that they're living in is kind of problematical because their house is the same house they moved into, 20 or 30 years ago. So the fact that some outsider wants to come in and pay $500,000 or $1 million for the house, and then we're going to tax them for the new rates, which was, again, why I wanted to get off property tax. The system is just too unstable. The town employees are doing their absolute best. They should not be a punching bag by the federal government or the state government. But at the same time, we are playing by the rules that the state has set up for us. And some of these rules have massive contradictions. And if the towns do not say to the state, because they do represent us, they do work for us, if we don't push back, they will not move. But if we push back, they can move. And it's just a question of getting the unions and getting the businesses and getting the banks and getting the town government and getting the people in a conversation. That's kind of what we're trying to do. And we immediately run into, we don't have the authority, got to stay within the lines. At some point, we got to push through those lines.
That's not tonight, though, so let's.
It's not
please.
tonight. But
I agree.
There are different things we can do. We're not neutered here. We choose to be neutered. That's a totally different thing.
Patrick, did you have one just to wrap
Yeah,
this?
I really want to wrap it up because Joanna's got a lot, and I have some thoughts on her budget itself. I just wanted to mention that, to your point, Mike, that I just want to caution the board when we are having these conversations to be careful of placing values. When we say that, make a statement that is that, the price we pay for keeping taxes low is actually, you want to be careful when you quantify, because not every individual has the same value in their mind associated with low. It might be of some impression that we've had taxes low for a lot of years, or we didn't go into the levy limit. But I want to mention there were times when the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen and town administration killed themselves only to get the budget to town meeting and have it defeated, only to come back and have to change it even more and make cuts. So we aren't the governing board that is going to ultimately have that. We work with the town management, and we report, we're a body under the Board of Selectmen, and that's where all the power lies. We do have a role, but I just want to caution that, what we do want to do is elevate all of this, because that is part of our role. And I just want to, again, be careful when we associate a value, like if we keep it low, because one person's, what they equate to being low and what another individual equates to being low are not the same. So I just wanted to add that, but healthy discussion. I actually, just to go to your budget, I was glad to see some of the things that are in here, like you said, the 12,000 and the intern, some of the things you've discussed, because I think we're getting very creative at looking at ways. Like I said earlier, I think, our town manager has just, what a budget year for her to come into her role, and it's just been extraordinary. But I think that to see some of this stuff already shows workarounds. I was sort of surprised, because I know that you were the one thing that was at the top of the list, and you sort of didn't get everything you wanted. So, but I think, like when I looked at the CIP, which you've gone over already, we did decrease this line, but we were effective in moving it over to the CIP. So I feel like, I just hope, I want to ask you if there's anything in your column that you really, really needed that you didn't get, but I'm thinking that you got all the tall orders.
Yes, so I'm very grateful for what we did receive. And I think the biggest priority for myself and I think most people in town are the roads. So that's why I had that explanation, just because
So
that's what
it's
we're
still
looking.
there, it just moved, and it's, no, I gotcha.
Can I ask you a question? Because you had requested 625, the town manager asked for 150. I've heard through the grapevine that there's a warrant to increase that number, but I don't know what that number was.
If I can, through the chair, two things. There is a warrant, a citizen's petition to add, I do believe it's 500,000 off the top of my head, don't quote me, but I believe it's 500,000 to the roadways out of free cash. So that is one of the citizens petitions, but also we not only moved it, we increased the amount in this line item because we know it's a priority for this board, for the Board of Selectmen and the residents. We are trying to find, obviously, a balance. So there is the chance that at town meeting, they may make the decision to take 500,000 in free cash and put it towards this as well, which will change the amount of mileage we're able to do.
And the last thing, if I did the math right, a mile is about $880,000. Is that a good rule of thumb? 900? So this is less than this. This is going to be less than a mile. Separate. This is separate from the state funds.
I don't have that calculation done out.
I think largely, if your explanation was much of this cut here is roadway improvement is going to be over on the CIP, and as opposed to this budget?
Yes.
Is that, the difference is that, the number listed here for road construction is gonna be not close, but the CIP is where you're getting most of your road
Yes.
construction monies from.
So,
$686,000.
Anything else on engineering section of your budget that you wanted to discuss? Before we move on to stormwater, which I know is, before you were the DPW director, stormwater was your favorite thing to talk about when you come before us, so.
So as far as engineering is concerned, the only other changes were the wages.
Okay. Great, anything, move on to stormwater? We'll take,
Do you want to make a motion to do the engineering one?
I think we'll just do it as one whole,
It's one
whole at the end.
full value?
Yes, sir. Okay, stormwater?
So this is similar. The item that was changed was the replaced pipes and catch basins, which is basically the drainage money that I alluded to before.
So same thing, that the big decrease in that one is largely reflected in CIP requests.
Yes, so that would have been brought over to the CIP drainage line item.
Oh, yeah. De-weeding of ponds, is there any reason we didn't, it seems like we didn't expend the full amount this past year, or do we still, are we gonna be utilizing that in the weeks and months to come before the end of the fiscal year?
Yeah, so they start their treatment in April. So that money is going to be expended during the rest of the year.
Any questions on stormwater? Michael?
This is a weird question, and it is like very specific, so I apologize. But I know that there's an invasive plant called Tree of Heaven that apparently has very deep roots that are awful and destroy pipes and like undercut roads and stormwater. And like, I guess I'm curious, like, are we doing anything proactive to try to prevent damage in that way? Like, this is a plant that we like know for a fact is both invasive and has a very specific sort of like MO of what it does when it comes in. And so, like, I recognize that this isn't necessarily a stormwater problem, but it is going to result in stormwater costs. And I'm just curious, like, do we do anything proactive at all to try to prevent those kinds of things?
So as far as invasive species outside of the pond, the de-weeding of ponds, we don't really have a program for that. You bring up a good point. So we're doing a lot more in the way of inspections. We have a new tracking system that we're going to be putting into, a GIS database. So those pipes that we do have trouble with, we can find, those trouble areas. We have the ability to camera lines. And we also have a jet vac truck with an attachment that can actually bore through pipes. So using those two tools, we can track those, that maintenance, knowing that there's an issue there. And obviously, if we see roots in the pipe, we can notice that, okay, well, there's vegetation that needs to be cleared. But we don't have a specific, a specific program to target specific plant life.
I'm just curious why you know about invasive species of pipes.
So there's a
No, you don't have to answer that if you don't want to.
metric ton of it on a lot that's in all likelihood causing damage to a road, but it's like a private road. It's a whole thing, but it's right near my house.
Okay.
There's a
I
lot.
know you're very well read. I'm not trying to, that's,
I mean, yeah, I'm very smart, so you're welcome. I don't know what to tell you.
Any other stormwater-related questions besides invasive species? No?
Here's a quote.
Okay. I gotta lighten it up. The last block was kind of heavy, so I was trying to lighten it up a little bit.
Trevor's seriously considering absenting himself again from the next couple of meetings.
Oh, this is like my
Move on
Godfather
to
3.
the highway division.
So in the highway division, wages, we had requested a full-time employee, and just was not able to, we couldn't fit that in the budget. So we are, moving forward.
Wage full timeline?
Yes. So
Could you just repeat that? What was not, you had requested a position that was not?
that wasn't funded, in the wages full-time.
Okay.
And then I think that's, everything else
To
is more
that
of a.
point, just a question. It looks like the wages are jumping back up from 26 to like closer to a level that they were at before. I'm sure that we talked about this last year, but I don't remember it. And it's just a big change year to year where that 200,000 in wages full-time is coming from.
Was that unfilled positions in 26 that are now being filled for?
I believe, and I'm not exactly sure if that was, I think it was the reorg. I'm sorry, I'd have to look at the roster. Yeah, But yeah, so we have a new position that was removed. And I'm not really sure if that just is going to the contractual obligations or if I'm not sure if that had anything to do with the EVP position as well. Because it was originally in there.
If I may, through the chair, we have an EVT position in our fire department that was currently budgeted out of the DPW budget. It is a fleet maintenance emergency vehicle technician that's certified for emergency vehicles. We have moved them from this budget over to the fire department budget, just that one position. So you will see a decrease. The other thing is that from last year and to this year, and correct me if I'm wrong, Joanna, the establishment of the fleet maintenance budget is brand new. That's a new division that we now have under DPW. It was combined with highway. So it's hard to compare apples to apples at this point because we did break out fleet maintenance. It is a new division. That in addition to the EVT in the fire department.
Yeah, so, through the chair, if you don't mind, the issue I'm seeing, and it's certainly possible that I'm overstating it, the like 3-year rolling average in wages full-time for 23 through 25 was 668. And then in 26, it dropped to 478,513 after town meeting. And now it's back up to 681. I'm not like necessarily concerned about that number as like a top line. It's more just like fleet maintenance has only, realistically existed in the level it has for a year. And that's definitely the drop. Where is the jump back to 680 coming from? Because I understand we had one position that was asked for and not not filled or not whatever, approved. And that explains the difference between the department request and the town manager's. But there's like $200,000 that looks like it moved to fleet maintenance and then comes back. And I'm assuming you don't have like 2 or 3 new guys in this budget. So I'm just concerned, like, did we accidentally double count some people? Because, I mean, and then if you look at the next page where the fleet maintenance is, that is not by a lot, but also going up next year. And so it's not like it came back.
I can say a portion of that is the collective bargaining agreement that was processed last year for this year. It was agreed upon last year. It kicked in during the year, which is why you've had all those transfers. I don't believe that's the increase. I can have Karen and Joanna take a look at that because it does look like it's a little bit too much. So I'll see if there's a calculation issue there.
While we're on that line,
Yes.
I don't understand that in the current year, we only have 30,000 left on that for the remainder of the year we've expended 446 out of 478 through.
That's usually encumbered. So it shouldn't, sorry.
No, but I'm saying like
I'll
that.
let you talk about it.
If I could, it includes what's expended plus what's encumbered, so what's to be paid out through the end of the fiscal year.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay, so we can move beyond it, and you'll get back to us. We can decide at the end whether we want to hold off on an entire recommendation until we get those clarification on those numbers, but we can decide that when we get to the end. Anything else on the highway?
I included a new line item for tech support, and that's the new software for work order tracking. We just finalized our implementation. We're going to be rolling it out to staff, but eventually it's going to be available for residents to not only report issues, but also see what the status is, if there's issues that have already been reported. So I'm hopeful that, if we eliminate the idea of, somebody sees a pothole and they're like, oh, well, obviously it was reported. They can look, it hasn't been reported, so they can click on an area.
I think this was brought up before this. So this system would have the ability to track requests for service and then the work orders related to those requests as they move along. Am I correct in understanding the software?
So yes, so you would be able to see if you requested a service, pothole filled, you can go back and see, yes, it was filled on this and this date.
That's it. So currently it's just internal, but at some point it'll be external. If I call in a pothole on my street, I could actually see that it was assigned out to work and where it was in the queue and sort of track it that way.
Yes, and I'm not sure how much of that is going to be public facing, but you would be able to see this was reported, this was, in progress, and then it was closed out.
Great.
Yeah, I'd limit that if you can before people are fighting over where their pothole is in priority to the other person's pothole.
Patrick?
Since we're on highway and it triggered my thought, what's the year-to-date snow removal and salt and road care for this past winter? Do we even have the last storm in there?
So we have the last storm, but we needed to, bingo.
Sorry, I don't know if we've had introductions either, so.
I apologize. This is Peter Boria. He is the Assistant DPW Director and Sewer Superintendent, so he took this position. Is it now? Yeah. Oh, almost. Thank you. So this shows our snow and ice budget, what's been expended, and our deficit. It shows the last storm, but we just received salt deliveries, and I'm not sure if that's included in this. I wasn't able to,
Deficit about 350,000?
362, yes.
62, I can just about make it out. It's not that, it's just a little smaller on the screen than my glasses are affording me. Okay. That's a close ballpark. Just thank you for the update.
It's been a winter, and we had the long plowing events where we needed to have private contractors come in, but we also had the ice storms where we were using more material, more salt. So, all of those line items had to go up.
Just, sorry, part-time wages on the, back to the highway budget are those summer workers? Is that, what are part-time?
I'm sorry.
Down the lower part of the,
It's just under 4,250.
Oh, so that's snow and ice, it would be the, I believe, I'm sorry, I'd have to, I think it's the overtime of the,
I think it's exactly what we're looking at right there, part-time wages for snow and ice.
okay, yeah.
so,
52
it's,
last year, it's on it, yeah, sorry.
I believe it's the overtime of employees that are not in the highway division.
So separate of that, had you at one point gotten away from part-time workers, and maybe I'm in the wrong, maybe when we get to parks, is where they were previously, maybe we can wait, I can wait till we get over to parks, but is that where we used to see part-time employees, summer employees?
Summer employees would be parks and cemetery.
Okay, because we can wait till we get there, I'll ask the question. Additional questions on highway? Okay. We'll move on to facilities.
There really hasn't been much of a change in the budget, but I would be happy to answer any questions.
Facilities questions? I mean, certainly we hear that small group does a tremendous amount of work around town. The savings involved with their work is, short of having to contract out, the work they do is a huge savings to the town, so. But it looks like it is a complete agreed upon request and town manager's recommendation.
And it would just be the contractual obligation for the employees.
Okay. Any questions on facilities? If not, we'll move on to, which will probably be a discussion one. Fleet maintenance.
So fleet maintenance wages, we discussed a new position in fleet maintenance, which wasn't funded, but we were able to get the recommendation from the town manager for the 20,000 for a co-op, which would help the two mechanics, an extra set of hands every other week.
How many fleet mechanics are within the DPW as opposed to like not including the fire station because he's specialized? How many non-specialized? Is there 2 specialized and then 4 that mechanics? So there's 6 total?
So there's 2 mechanics at the DPW, and there is, I believe, 1 full-time, and I believe he is I think at this point, he's a co-op student that works at the fire as well. So the EVT, the specialized mechanic, and then the EVT, from my understanding.
It's 2, it's not 4.
Correct.
How big is our fleet? How many vehicles on our fleet? Do you know? I want to throw questions at you.
I don't have my notes. I know.
Highway is 70,
And then we have,
Those two mechanics also take care of police as well.
Well, that's, I was looking for, yeah, a total number. Probably 25 to 30, probably for police vehicles? You'd say more, okay.
I think it's closer to 50 according to Chief Mills, if I remember correctly.
And the fire department's another,
the fire is a little bit, since they have their own mechanic, we don't really have a lot of
that
the,
mechanic never comes, if he does, he's.
usually, yeah, if he needs to use equipment, then he works with our mechanics, but he works out of the fire station.
And then other departments, DDIS has vehicles. Any other?
So we have
Cemetery, well, those are all under yours. isn't it?
the DPW, all the vehicles and equipment, the small engine type stuff, but yeah,
That's a lot of equipment
they're
for,
busy.
and you sort of have fleets in your world, like, I mean,
Yeah, we have, I think we're up to about 160 vehicles with our sales fleet, and we have 3.5 mechanics. So I'd say it's on par with where we are, whether that, I don't think it's necessarily apples to apples, but I would say.
but some of your fleet, right, we're talking the bigger vehicles are more, that's to disassemble.
It is, it's labor intensive. I know that, there's times that our mechanic just isn't able to get to it just because it's gonna, if he opens up the vehicle, it's gonna be a week of work where he's not gonna be able to get to any of the other priorities. So, there are times that we need to send stuff out. if it's
And
gonna
the
take a long
season,
time.
staying with keeping the plow fleets on the road, other vehicles need to be put on the back burner for regular maintenance for the police or.
Yes, the police have been great. They've been very patient. I know that our mechanic's been working on the police vehicles this week. It's been a priority just to make sure that they, any issues are addressed. But during the snowstorms, the DPW takes priority.
I'm just going to ask the question. I know we've had to send some vehicles out this year. Is that because we didn't have, was it a skill level, amount of time, because of staffing level, where, I think you brought it up when you needed transfers, but can you just remind us?
Sure. So a lot of that is if we don't have time to, there's been times where we've had a storm, a vehicle needed repairs after that storm, and there was another storm coming, and just because of all the repairs that are needed, they just didn't have time to fix that vehicle, so that was sent out. There's also equipment that we don't have, specialized equipment that, in the future, we'd like to get, but that equipment would be required for some repairs. So some repairs, we just don't have the resources to fix yet, but we're working towards it.
So did you request, I see department request is $64,000. Was that for an additional position? Was that an additional mechanic that you had requested?
Yes.
And when we send stuff out, it's a contracted rate, right? It's not necessarily the same rate, so we are paying more when we send vehicles out than we would if we fix them in-house.
Yes.
Trevor?
This just kind of popped into my head, and it might be a wildly dumb question, so I apologize. I know in other areas of the town, we're able, and when you mentioned like co-ops, this kind of popped into my head, but we are able to outsource like carpentry work to Bay Paths departments and things like that. When you say co-op, is that like a student? Are we tapping into Bay Path for students for that?
Yes.
And then a counter question to that is, are we able to utilize their department, or would we be able to for maybe like, obviously if there's some highly technical piece of equipment on a truck, we don't want to send that out to like, students that are learning like a more basic level thing, but is that something where we can utilize them to do work on town vehicles when we're at capacity, maybe to help kind of lower the burden on our mechanics, or just kind of balance out the work where it's like, hey, these things just need a couple hours worth of work. If we can get them out there, do they have the ability? They might be packed to the gills. I know that if you're a town, if you are in the neighboring towns, you can go to them for maintenance and things on your vehicles if you need it. So I'm curious to what extent we do use them, and is there availability for us to use them? And
So I think, and I'm kind of, I don't have a lot of,
I know I'm just kind of throwing it at, I'm just curious, like it's not a,
I don't have a lot of experience. We haven't really had a close relationship with Bay Path as a DPW. I'm hoping that we can build that relationship with the co-op student as well, but the types of repairs that are, that we would need, especially in the winter, that would be, time sensitive.
there's a
So-
lot of it that I'm assuming is, yeah, either it's very urgent or technical to the point that it wouldn't make sense, but I didn't know if there's opportunity where there's things that they could do that, again, it kind of alleviates the need to, or at the very least, I'm assuming that they would charge us a more feasible rate than maybe some of the other outsourced places would be charging us. So I just wasn't sure if it's something that we had been doing or
No,
if it's even possible.
I think it might be possible, and I think that we can have those conversations with Bay Path, and whether we have trucks that need those types of repairs when they are looking to teach those. I think that would be a great, mutual agreement that,
I know there's also other towns too, and they're all of a sudden, like, they're doing stuff for us, then Oxford and Charlton and the Brookfields, they all want their trucks there too, so it could be a problem that creates a wait list, I don't know, but it just figured it was just popped in there when it came up.
thank you.
I have a couple. So on the wages, I am having trouble making this math. So there's obviously like a wage sheet behind the budget, and that's showing a fleet maintenance budget for wages of 294,098.45, which is neither the department request nor the town manager recommendation. It indicates that Kenneth, the fleet EVT, was moved to fire. I looked at the fire and I don't see him on their wage table at all. So I'm not sure if that's part of this. And then, just, I guess, sort of setting that aside, it shows a senior and a junior, a fleet foreman and a fleet mechanic, and then a junior fleet mechanic, which was listed as new position, and that's the one that we're not filling this year?
Correct.
Okay, so there's just no way that these numbers are correct, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, either because some of these are being budgeted else, like, I don't know if we're pulling money from somewhere else or what, but like, there's no combination of the numbers that are on the wage sheet that adds up to the numbers that are on the department request or the town manager request. So I'm just nervous that, like, that's just the one I've caught, but I don't know if, like, and we've already talked about the fact that there's 200,000 in highway that's too high. Yeah, go ahead, Karen.
If I could, so if you look at the fleet, there are some items that are within the salary that aren't on the wage sheet. So say like the wages part-time and the overtime, those, and the fleet differential, those are not on this sheet. These are just the positions with the salaries.
Yeah, understood. It's more just like 216,000, and then if you look at, 77, 70,
Oh, I'm
67, 64.
Let me just clarify, the wage sheet that is here is what the department request was, not the town managers. So there's some position, if there is a position that wasn't funded, it's still in here for the department request, but taken out for the town managers.
Yeah, understood. Even if we take out the new position, again, math is not at the top of my list, but I don't think these numbers add up to the right amount. Because if the fleet EVT moved and we only have two positions, that's 137,000, 138,000. With a new position, 138 plus 64 would be 202, right? Am I losing it? Like,
Can I-
and then their clerical is already separated out into 13. That matches up perfectly. Go ahead.
I can. So there's a combination of different backup. I did check the fire department budget there is $77,774 under their salary item that says fleet maintenance. It is there, so just so you
It's
know.
not, it's not, he's that wage sheet. That's
It's
fine.
not,
Okay.
right. So on this fleet maintenance, the 216,324 that's recommended by the town meeting manager is in the backup. If you look at the backup of the
Yep.
salary page, if you take the 294 that's there and subtract the fleet maintenance position, that equals the 216. So the number does work. It just,
It does work if that position is, that third position is in the budget, which I thought it wasn't.
there are 3 positions, junior fleet, senior fleet, I think we went through this already. Junior fleet, senior fleet, and fleet foreman. And that equates to 216, 324. The 3 positions, not 2.
Is that your, so
That's that was my
am
recommendation.
I just overthinking this and you're saying we have 2 mechanics, but you weren't mentioning the
One's not
foreman
filled.
included in your thought that you have 2 positions?
I'm sorry, can I just take a look at the,
We have 2 positions, one's not full, so there's actually 3, 2 are full. And it equals my
is
amount.
this what I submitted, or was that the corrected vote? Wait, so is there one that was the one that you had sent over? No, the one that you had sent over to,
Is that right?
In that, yeah, then the 13 is the clerical line, so those 3 are gonna add up to that, and then she's saying that 77 rolls up to the 294. The 77 is actually getting paid out of fire, so it's not included in her request.
Yeah, but Mike said the clerical is.
This is filled, this is filled, and this is filled.
Yeah, those 3 salaries only add up to $203,057.
Right, and then you add the 13 from the.
But the 13 has its own line, clerical?
Yes, and that equals the 216. Okay. So the amount that I have right here, the 216, is
Either
all of this.
we're paying Michelle Johnson twice, which I fully support. Or,
Oh, I see what he's saying, yeah.
right, there's, so
Yeah.
Michelle,
Yeah.
yeah.
and just to like, I'm sorry, I am often not as clear as I would like to be, but we have a fleet foreman and a senior fleet mechanic. Do we have a second mechanic? Is that a position that you expected to be filled?
That's the position that was not filled. That was,
So that is also in the budget, though, is what I'm saying. So if you're not hiring a junior mechanic, this is like $79,000 too high. And if you are hiring a junior mechanic, it's only $13,000 too high. So that definitely, but I'm saying,
Are we
I'm not
posting and
sure.
hoping to fill?
are the two guys that you have right now are John and Cam.
yes, and I'm not sure, so it was. can
You have a third person here.
No, the question is, in the, recommendation, I'm just not sure.
It included the junior fleet.
Yeah.
So we're going to 3
So-
mechanics, and we
So I
just
think
talked
what-
that we only have 2. We're going to 3.
So I think that what my request was the 4 mechanics, Kenny, John, and Cam.
But Kenny is moving to fire.
Right.
That's covered.
And I think that, so, so I don't know if,
You're getting
But
3 if we go with the town manager
Right.
recommendation.
correct.
But that
I
doesn't
don't
include
know if-
Kenny. is
But
what
I
I'm
don't know
saying.
if that was the intent. Oh, okay. So I am getting an
So
extra.
we got good news.
Yes.
Congratulations. One more position. We do need to correct the 13,000 though.
Yeah, there'll be a couple things to correct before we vote on it, and we'll just push the vote for our next one. We'll motion that at the end if we want. So on fleet, I just want to bring up, so last week we did a transfer of $100,000 to the DPW fleet maintenance budget. Is that goes to, which would, this line would be here, would be MV repairs DPW? Is that the correct, same account, same terminology, just differently? So that only brings us to, so if the 250 that was budgeted added the $100,000, which I don't know if that was the only throughout the whole fiscal year that we added for that account, but so that would bring us to the same amount, 350. Do we think, we just see the costs of, and again, hopefully that's where some of the software that you've got here is gonna give us a better idea of planning for, is that enough money to cover the repairs based upon a whole host of factors and ages of vehicles and miles driven and, you know, a hard number to sort of, to hit, but is that a good number for your request? I see it's a mutual department request, town manager's request.
So this is a lot closer to what we believe we would be at. We did transfer, I believe, a total of $150,000 into the current budget because we had a previous transfer
I
of,
thought there was a previous one as well.
Yeah, that's in the adjusted fiscal 26 adjusted.
Right, okay.
so we're at 350. I know in speaking with the mechanic, he's comfortable with that number because he's also invested in a lot more preventative maintenance in the vehicles than we have in the past. So hopefully, making those repairs and doing more preventative maintenance, he's doing a lot more repairs that, you know, we're not waiting until the truck breaks down, but if he's, you know, looking at it, there's something, you know, something wrong, he sees something else, he's fixing both. So, and that hasn't been done in the past. So, him being proactive, I think we'll be in a better place in increasing the budget to where we're at. I think we're at that mark.
Andrew?
So just to ask, I think I went through this a little bit last year on Fleetio is the program that you use. Is that still current?
Yes.
This is year 3 that we've been using that, or 2? Forgive me, I forget.
I think it might be 3.
3. Is that helping you in, I mean, this number should be more than hope. I think at year 3, we're in our 3rd year and we have a much more dialed budget with that same program on our fleet. So I'm hoping that should be telling you, you know, it should be advising you retirement plans on vehicles and stuff like that. Do you feel that you're getting good feedback from that program and that use and the parts and what seems to be breaking down on these vehicles?
So we had a little bit of a turnover in staff. So we've had the current mechanics for a little over a year. They've been entering in the data, and Pete's going to be getting caught up on the Fleetio on more of the financial side of it. So I'm hoping that between the new mechanics that are actually are putting the repairs in, we'll have some consistent data.
Sorry. I think my question too would be for Pete, so that, you know, I think your predecessor we felt had a pretty good handle on the fleet. Can you just give us your background on and confidence relative to the fleet? Because it is a big chunk of the budget. It's, you know, it's a big, good-sized fleet for the size of the town, and, you know, the costs are ever changing, so.
Yeah, so again, my name is Pete Boria. The 3rd string of my title is Assistant DPW Director, Sewer Superintendent, Fleet Maintenance. So I will be taking this over from Nick. My experience, I grew up in a small business, family garage. I ran the garage for 10 years before I started working as a water sewer superintendent, went on to facilities, utilities and facilities superintendent for the town of Spencer. So I have background in this. I think if you're looking at doing regular maintenance on your vehicles, $350,000 is more than adequate. If you have an engine blow on one of your plow trucks, it might not be, right? So I think that's the balancing act. I think $350,000 is a great start and a great target for us to aim for and to make sure that we try and do the best we can with what we get, knowing that if we have one of those larger breakdowns, that's $25,000, it's going to be hard to absorb in this line item. And those types of things, we can print out. Our mechanic is doing a great job tracking all of the parts and repairs he's doing on Fleetio. So we can run a report and we can see the cost of each part or each repair on what those parts were. So we see repairs from $36 up to $9,000. And again, we can print that out. We can share it. It's kind of enlightening to see. And he's doing a great job with that to make sure we can track it and kind of justify what we're using these dollars for.
And just a follow-up, I'm assuming if you're outsourcing, which we talked about a little bit, you're putting that into the program as well to kind of see the differences in that?
Yeah, so the outsourcing is interesting. I'm just kind of getting caught up on that. Some of the stuff we're outsourcing for labor only. They're letting us, purchase our own parts and bring that over. Some of the prior ones, I'm not sure if that was the case, but it's not something that we're doing, say, once every 2 weeks. I think it's a once in a while, where it's maybe once a quarter.
Okay.
We might be sending something over, somewhere else to kind of help us so that we can stay up on the smaller items. And the easier thing to come in, that we can get in and out for both a highway and for police.
Yeah, I mean, I just, in my experience, it's sometimes, not having the equipment is worse, no matter the cost of the repair. So if it's, a timing of
Yes.
getting it in, obviously, I'm not saying we want to blow budgets, but, if we don't have the equipment, it doesn't help us.
No, understood. I think that's kind of the balancing act that the current mechanic is doing, is he'll prioritize his time and where he can get the most work accomplished to keep the entirety of the fleet operational. And if it makes sense to send something out, he'll do that, so that, again, we don't fix one thing while four things sit and kind of just wait, because that one repair is too large or takes too much time.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Yeah, and I guess I'm pleased that you've got the responsibility to sort of oversee, be the overall parent of the fleet, because you get different departments are going to, ask and request different things, and, I think we need someone that's looking at it from a, holistic point of view, and, even vehicles that are just sitting for someday, there's a cost involved, right? They do have to be brought in for regular maintenance, for tires, things that sit. Vehicles don't like to sit. They don't like it. They start to deteriorate, and there's got to be, there's a cost that's involved with those vehicles, regardless of how many miles or engine hours are being put on these things. So I'm glad that you're trying.
And like Joanna mentioned about the deferred maintenance, and talking to John, the head mechanic, he mentioned that last year, towards the end of the fiscal year, we needed to wait to do repairs, which was fine to be under last year's budget. But that means we started this fiscal year with repairs that needed to be done prior, that ate into this budget. So I think with what he's doing and how proactive he's being, and again, with the additional funding, hopefully we'll get caught up to where we won't necessarily be coming to you for these large transfers. So, thank you for that.
Relative to fleet?
Before we move on, I just wanted to say, I also, and I suspect that you guys may have found it too, but there's about a $68,000 doubling in the highway budget as well.
Parks.
So this was the labor that I had requested that was not able to be funded this year in Parks. So I requested an additional labor, and we're just going up on the wages for contractual obligations.
Can you just go over the responsibility of Parks? Again, I think I hoped this year that you would have a little bit more of a presentation for us to sell your department a little bit more. How many people, how many road miles, how many buildings you maintain, how many, it's a big number. It's a big budget. I sort of hoped that you were going to come with a little bit more of a presentation, but that aside, what does Parks do?
So we currently have 5 employees in Parks, and they do anything and everything outside of the roadway. So from changing the banners at Goddard Park, mowing, landscaping, mulching, they line fields, they cut the grass at the South Hold Road land. So any islands, any landscaped islands, any islands that are within the roadways, they're also taken care of.
And having been, former vice president of the Little League, I know the work they do, and, the huge amount of work. And I know I have other members of the committee and have kids in sports and that are on executive boards of sports. The fact that there are only 5 people in your parks department and the amount of, I don't even know, again, I'd love to hear, what the acreage is that they're trying to cover. They also maintain all the memorials, correct? Veterans memorials.
The Veterans Memorials, all the playgrounds, they maintain the playgrounds, anything that needs to be fixed in the playgrounds. They maintain the dog park, so making sure that all the trash receptacles throughout all the parks are emptied on a regular basis. So, yeah, there's a lot of work, and it's amazing what they can do with.
And I'm just gonna, quick comment, like the beautification of Drury Square was a great project. And I applaud the businesses. I'm just gonna use the example as I had, Sabres Bank has done a tremendous job. Their property right up to that edge of the roadway is absolutely gorgeous. I'm not gonna mention the businesses because they may just be leasees in some of the other businesses. But the property in front, which may not technically be their responsibility, it may be ours, it looks awful. And again, I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. I'm just pointing out that there was a large investment in that beautification of Drury Square, and it's already sort of showing some age and lack of care. And I'm again, for 5 employees, if that does fall to them, all those islands on Brotherton and everywhere else that, and the banners and the flags and the parks and the courts and I don't know how 5 people do it. So again, this is probably one, for only one position, I would support if there's a means at some point that we can fund that position, because I think it certainly could utilize it. And I think this is where I was going to ask. I think in the past, you used to have college kids that supported your crew. I know they couldn't do some of the power equipment and stuff, but they certainly did some of the other, the weedings, those type jobs. Have those gone away? I know there was a year we tried to cut, and I think they went away. Are those gone entirely? Do you not have summer employees any longer? Or?
No, we still have summer employees. We don't have a lot of applicants, but we do have them. They are funded out of the revolving accounts.
Those come out of revolving, okay. Any questions relative to parks?
I wanted to make an observation. I know that we have Volunteer Week and that we are very fortunate that the Chamber of Commerce steps up and runs a volunteer day where they clean the town. And I think it's an excellent opportunity, but I wish that that could be extended throughout the year somehow without taking any kind of recognition away from the Chamber. I think that if the Highway Department, or I know for an example, as someone who's volunteered for that for several years, I know I had something to do one day and I couldn't participate as a volunteer, but there was no mechanism to. I did a workaround, which I don't want to spend the time in tonight mentioning, but I just think there are people that could step up too in town and help. I mean, we discussed earlier, we're in a major area. So when you drive by some of these intersections or over over near Packagug and to go up the hill under the highway there and over near the DPW, just as an example, I mean, the amount of garbage that gets thrown out of cars just passing through town is just deplorable. And I know that as residents, when that volunteer day comes, that we're very proud of our town, and a lot of us really knock it out of the park, and the chamber does an incredible job. But it would be nice if the DPW or town administration could think of ways to enhance that. I think that if we could do a 2 or 3 times a year cleanup, and it doesn't necessarily all have to fall on the chamber, that you'd find that a lot of residents are very proud of Auburn and would continue to step up, realizing that it's an ongoing effort.
Patrick, you mentioned the chamber, and I would love to see the chamber encourage their membership to extend, beyond out to the edge of their footprint and give a hand here and there. Again, I think if I owned a business, I would ensure, like Savers does, it's immaculate. I just use them. It's beautiful.
But I just know just that one day, what we endure as volunteers to pick up in the town, you've got 5 people maintaining the rest of our beautification throughout the whole year. And that was really sort of the point that I was trying to mention. So they do a great job.
Anything else relative to parks? I'm sorry, Michael?
Karen knows. There's another 13.
Okay.
That's all I got. Yeah,
That's all you got?
too much money.
Trevor?
I was just going to say we should maybe just in totality revisit the totals on the payroll numbers. Then I obviously we can point them out as they come, but I think the point has kind of been made that we can come back to that and look at it separately.
Okay. Patrick, did you have anything?
No, I was going to say, given the circumstances, should we ask any general questions based on any of our concerns this evening, so that when they do come back, it just shortens the length of time, since we've got, I don't know if there's other items that the board wants to question that otherwise.
Well, I think we probably should go through the remaining divisions, and just so that we don't have to go in depth, and then we can hit CIP. But yeah, we definitely won't make any sort of votes on the budget till we get an amended spreadsheets. So Parks, golf course. And this is just for the public, if you can explain the funding a little bit for golf course. It looks like a big number, but the reality is through the accounts, it's self-funded.
So yes, the golf course is self-funded. Over the past few years, we've brought in over $1 million, so we've continuously added to the retained earnings, allowing us to make improvements on the golf course with allocating some of those retained earnings towards CIP projects.
The overall health of the golf course?
Right now, it's a little wet.
I'm not saying, I'm not talking today, because I'm sure it looks, I'd step on my front lawn right now and sink up to my knees, but overall, in terms of annual memberships, carts, rounds played last year, improvements, again, for the investment, I'm not a big golfer, I'll play occasionally, but I have friends that golf up there and they rave about the Pack Track Golf Course. So can you just talk a little bit about, again, the health of the course and relative to?
Sure. So the membership, we're as busy as we have been. I apologize, I don't have the rounds of golf played for the entire year. But last year was a little bit more of a dip than the previous year, just because of weather. The previous year, I don't think we were open. We closed at all the entire year. Right now, it's all weather dependent. We're waiting to see when we can open. I'm getting emails already. There's definitely interest on the fact that we can provide the golfers, a great golf course. The superintendent does a great job in maintaining it, but also at a low price. We're one of the lowest priced golf courses around.
Value, right?
Right. Value. Yes. Thank you. So we do have some capital improvement projects that we're looking to add, to if they're already funded, we're looking to start up. We're finalizing the design on the drainage bid package, and we're looking to bid that out. We're planning on construction in the fall, when it's a little bit drier, but also a little bit less hot, so that we have some grass growing back in. And we're working on an irrigation system as well. That's going to allow us to be open more, and it's going to allow a lot less of a hardship on staff. Currently, we have the superintendent and the assistant superintendent, which is the groundskeeper line item. They are at the golf course 7 days a week. So they take turns working weekends to make sure to check the course. If there's watering, they water it. If there's areas of the golf course that need to be watered, they'll hand water it, just to prevent overwatering. There's a lot of knowledge in those two people, and a lot of commitment, because like I said, when the golf course is open, they're there 7 days a week.
Golf,
Just curious, do we target a budget for the golf course reflective of the projected revenue? And I mean that to say, like you're saying, like in the last couple of years, we've had like over $1 million in revenue and we've been able to put to retained earnings, but do we have a goal going into the year where we say we're projecting this much and we want to have our budget be 80% of that? And, are we, just curious what the kind of the structure of how we plan that out?
So I base it on the previous years. Some of this is difficult to project because if you looked at, and I think we changed the line item. It used to be banking charges, but now it's other charges and expenses. So we have fees relative to taking in money, credit card fees. So if we're doing great, that line item increases, we're spending more money, but we're also bringing
Right,
in
anyone
more
paying on a
money.
card, you're getting like, 90 cents on the dollar after the fees that you're paying back to the banks. I've seen the popularity of golf going up, but also the prices at a lot of places are astronomical. So I feel like a local option it's only gonna, at the very least, retain, its vitality there. I was just more so curious, like, is that, do we all of a sudden see ourselves in a couple of years looking at a budget that's way higher because we're going to try and, just to see where, I'm just trying to understand that part of it.
And I monitor that through the chair. Even our wages, in all of the other divisions, our wages are set. The wages here for the larger line items, the seasonal employees of 66,000, and actually, it's the seasonal employees, that's a variable. If we have bad weather, we don't have them coming in. There is a line item for groundskeepers, so that's 2 people. We haven't been able to fill that, so we've been using those funds to have a part-time employee just to help those 2. So there is a lot more variability, even in the wages accounts, much more so than the other divisions.
The weather also plays a role in it. We had not a lot of ton of rain last year. If we remember, it was very dry and people got out. But if we have a really, wet summer,
Right.
you're gonna see a lot of stuff diminish because people just aren't gonna be going up in their rain suits and playing in the pouring rain.
I've been surprised at how many people are braving weather to play golf. But yes, and that's also, if we look if we're looking at the weather, it's going to be raining all day, then we're not going to have the employees coming in. So we're not spending that money on the seasonal.
To that point, though, are we being careful not to let them on the greens of the tee boxes if they're going to, if being in the rain and everything is going to create more expense? Or
So-
do we manage that?
We do. So, so our clubhouse manager always works with the golf course superintendent. And he's guiding the the clubhouse manager on when to close the golf course totally. He'll rope off some areas where, he's concerned about damage, so.
It's probably a this year question, but how do we expect the festivities next Monday to affect the golf course?
A little concerned just because it's going to be raining, so I don't really know the attendance or how it's going to look. But we're going to keep them off the sensitive areas, the tees and greens, so hopefully there's going to be minimal damage that we can address.
Trevor?
In terms of, we've talked about different ways to get creative with things, and we're looking at they're right on top of each other, ironically, but we're talking about needing people in the parks and kind of an under, maybe needing more people there and not getting some of that funding. And then we've got the golf course, which is, I understand they're two different things funded differently, but essentially it's a big park for grown-ups. So my thought is there I don't know if it goes against any sort of, bylaws or guidelines, but for us to maybe have the ability to add additional employees that are maintaining the grounds at the golf course that could be, like, I don't want to say rented out, but effectively used by other departments of DPW to maintain parks areas when they're available. Does that make sense?
I'm not sure if you can mix the enterprise fund and the tax levy funded departments.
I just know obviously when we have situations where, like DPW is doing work for fire, like we charge, there's some
Yeah.
sort of rate that goes back and forth. Is there something into where we can charge a more feasible rate one way or the other? Again, I'm just thinking out loud, kind of spitballing about it, but it just seems like they're both kind of in there, and is that something?
Actually, I think the town manager was going to try and address it then.
No, I was just going to add to him before she answers. I think you're saying they have skill sets that can be transferred.
Right.
Right.
I like the way you think, through the chair. I like the way you think in being creative. We do have some union issues when it comes to parks work.
Yep.
It's actually owned by the union, so it has to be negotiated.
Okay.
But I think that that's the way we need to think and be creative and think outside the box. And just because we have to negotiate with the union doesn't mean it can't be done. There can be agreements, and that's something I'll definitely work with the department on.
I doubt I'm ever going to be the first person to bring something up, so it's usually just a clarification on why it can't happen. But I don't know, just.
Michael?
Is there any mechanism like town meeting vote or anything at all that can be done to use money from the enterprise fund for not the golf course? Because otherwise, we're essentially just like building money that can only ever be spent on the same, like, why aren't we just spending all of it every year? If we're not able to use the money, we're not able to use the interest, we can't put it towards the town, like, why are we not just making this the most kick-ass golf course that's ever lived?
So we're investing in the golf course.
Understood,
And I know that in conversations with Karen about the overall health of those funds, we have put money towards the CIP, but we also want to keep some of that just in case we don't have one of these good years.
I want kick-ass in the minutes.
Yeah.
Please, I want that in the minutes.
So did we answer that though? It's a good question by Michael. Can we use that enterprise fund anywhere else? There's no way to override that?
If I
Also,
could,
it's
yes, with an
legal how it's established, right, is how that.
Yeah, legally, once it's in enterprise funds, the revenues that come in, those user charges have to be used for that specific purpose. But like Joanna had said, we're looking at what we have for the certified retained earnings. We're going to use that for future capital when we can, instead of incurring borrowing costs, the interest.
Do we have like we have a free cash policy as a town. Do we have a policy on like how high we're comfortable with the enterprise fund going? Like, just from my perspective, if we're spending less than we make every year, it's going to go up forever. And that's great, except that we can't use it for anything else. So like, is there a number at which we just say, okay, we're making $1 million a year, we're going to start spending it no matter what? Like, or we need to start making less money, like lower fees. I just, like.
You're asking for a prudent reserve.
Yeah, I agree that we should save money for a rainy day. If we have one year where no one can golf, like, we don't want to have zero budget for the following year, but at the same time, like, what's the point of the enterprise fund growing if we can't use it for anything else?
So, being a new town manager, I haven't really had the opportunity to talk about how I could see things grow. One of the areas that I've talked to Joanna about, and I will be talking more to you about and to the Board of Selectmen, is growing the golf course in ways that make it better, in ways that provide more opportunity to our residents, whether it's a restaurant or there's a lot of things that we can do. And when I worked in Worcester, I worked directly with the Green Hill Golf Course for years. So I'm very familiar with our opportunity. So we're conservative to make sure that we have enough money on a bad year, but we're also looking at a longer range plan that improves our golf course. She has recently put through, I think if you can remember in the last the special town meeting, there are some improvements to drainage, and it's interesting because we have drainage problems, but we also have irrigation problems. It's interesting, but I do understand it, and I understand why we're doing it, but that's a really good step in the right direction. We have to resolve some of the ground issues before we move on to the bigger issues, but we'll be bringing forth a longer range plan that will be pretty exciting, and we'll want your input, and I have spoken to Joanna about it. We don't want to have an overabundance of funds. We want to just improve it and make it a better experience for our residents.
And I would just say that that's just another example of, the state writes the law, we follow the law, but they don't really get any feedback on how it actually operates at the local level. And this is, another example of those laws could be written differently.
I don't mean to jump back a little bit, but as we talk about accounts, so there's an account for Pappas, right? And there's I don't know who sets the fee schedule. I know that they were always very reasonable to town sports. I don't know if there's a different rate for outside leagues and stuff that utilize our fields. It's certainly wear and tear on those fields, and there's a Pappas revolving account, right? Just how does that, I guess I'm not going to ask you for a status, and Karen, I'm not going to ask you for a status unless you have it handy. How does that get utilized in your parks budget? Does that supplement any of what's here, or is it largely utilized for projects?
So for both parks and there's two different accounts, the Pappas revolving account and then the regular recreation account.
I'm sorry, there's a regular what?
There's a regular
Recreation account?
there's a regular parks revolving account.
So that's for fees taken in at Lemansky Fields and other places?
Correct. So we do have a different rate. Usually if it's a town sport, we'll charge a light fee. But if it's an outside organization, then it's a rental fee on top of a light fee. We use those funds not only to fund the parks, the seasonal parks employees, but anything that we need that's a little bit outside of any of our budget. We've purchased equipment to maintain the Pappas fields out of that fund. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if there's a lot of supplies that we use, but we do use some of it for the maintenance of those parks.
I spend my fall and spring in that park. And I brought it up last year. It needs some serious investment. I know we have it on CIP to replace the turf there, which is good, because it's getting dangerous. There are holes in it. We've repaired it a couple times. I think, I take pictures and we send them in, and you guys do a great job fixing them in a timely manner, so I appreciate that. But it's definitely, I think been an afterthought for, I forget, I think about 12 years now, to maintain or, just kind of maintain what it is. We haven't really invested in it more. I'd say we have less of a Parks and Rec program in this town, just because I don't think we have, my opinion, we don't have a Parks and Rec program that we kind of focus on. I think it's kind of an afterthought. I think the youth sports in this town do a lot for the town, but I don't think the town, it collaborates with the youth sports, just in my opinion, from what I've seen over the last, probably 10 years that I've been involved. So I just would think over the next, couple of years, we should definitely be looking into that. I kind of agree with Kevin that the 5 people we have is not enough to maintain the space we have. And I just don't want to see those parks that we have that we put so much investment in and got so much from the Pappases and the foundation. And, I don't want to see them in another 10 years to the point where they're degraded and they can't be used. So that's just my opinion on the park usage. That's not your department issue. It's just what I've seen.
I agree, and I've been away from Little League for a little bit, but at the time, the dugouts were starting to deteriorate. They were at probably the 11-year mark. They're probably at 15 years for the park now. At the time, facilities was going to do some of the labor for the replacing boards and whatnot, and then we were going to talk about having the sheriff's department come in to do their community, but then COVID came around, and there were no more inmates at the jail, and they weren't sending them out to paint. So I don't know where those projects are, or if they've been accomplished. I've been away from youth sports up there for a little bit, but, fields are a bigger one. That's bigger than paint and some boards, but if we don't maintain that investment that the Pappas family put in, we need to stay on top of that.
And just not Pappas too. I mean, we have a fields issue as a town for the amount of sports that we have. They're heavily used, they're heavily rented, they're heavily beat up. There's not enough fields in our town for our programs. There's not enough courts for the basketball program. These are just, again, it's near and dear to my heart, so I could wax poetic for a lot of time on it, but it's a struggle with the school system because they have fields that they use and we're trying to use them, and it's just, for a town that's so vibrant in sporting, or really, I guess, the Parks and Rec area, we could use a lot more space, I think, and we could probably make some.
Stephen, would you do that?
I guess this is probably a question for you, Dory. If we can charge organizations to use the parks, could we abandon the enterprise fund and use those funds as basically you're charging individuals to use the golf course, and then all those funds could be intermingled as a broader parks solution?
I would have to look into the ability to abandon an enterprise account and what the legal parameters, because like you said, it's all written by law. I do understand what you're saying, and I am hearing the board loud and clear, and I do agree. I did have a conversation today, believe it, with Ed Kazanovich. He came into my office and we were talking about the turf at Pappas and the work that needs to be done. And one of the things that I am doing right now, and you'll see it when you get to it, but I have made the rec director a full-time rec director instead of sharing duties. She was split between the senior center and recreation. It didn't work in any way at all. Neither got 100% of her attention. It's just not a good way to do business and to do to an employee. So she is funded 100% out of the revolving account for recreation. She will be doing year-round recreation programs. She's supervised by Joanna, but she's going to be working very closely with me because there's a lot more that this town can offer. And I hate to keep talking about Worcester. It's just my biggest experience is Worcester. We're not Worcester. Thank God we're not Worcester. I love Auburn. But I was also part of the Parks Department when I did the golf course and the rec program in Worcester, and there were programs all year round. And we just did a new program for our students for the February break. It's the first time Auburn's ever done that. Things like that need to happen more. We need to bolster recreation and parks and our fields. I would love to hear more about where we need to improve in regards to what types of fields do we need in addition to what we have. We have to maintain what we have, but you're talking about the demand, and I'm very familiar with it because I know the pushback from the school department and their fields and the use and the teams trying to get usage. But I would love to talk to you at a later date about what else you think we need, because that's really important. It's important for our kids that they have places to go, and I do know that we have a couple areas in town that are fields, but not really fields good enough for people to play on. So, but I also want to say that I did speak to, I think Joanna brought it up at the beginning of the week, that the basketball courts at Lemansky are in bad shape. So she's working on those. Those are being done over. So there is an investment, but I think we do need to focus on it moving forward. So thank you for bringing it up. I'm not sure if we can dissolve an enterprise account and merge that, but I can definitely look into it and see what the law allows us to do.
Patrick?
I just wanted to echo, living in precinct 2, I come off of 20 or 12 and I come up Bryn Mawr, and I have for 35 years. And as soon as the temperature goes up a little bit more and that daylight goes a little higher, the basketball courts at Lemansky are going to be packed every single night. And the baseball games are going to be going on the other side. And when I get out and I walk up and I go on the track and the playground, and you're talking about and that's what's really great, is that we have a huge family demand for all of our parks. And that's where the wear and tear is coming from. I didn't realize that these kids are playing basketball on courts that have to be redone. That's the passion that we have for the Parks Department. So, just give it another week or two, let the snow get out of the way, and these kids are going to be hungry to stay outside until dusk. So, and they have lights, so they'll stay out as late as their parents let them.
Those courts used to be good enough that leagues would do summer leagues there, and they don't any longer because they've sort of fallen in disrepair, so. Yeah, I just to, the overall comments, and we're getting to recreation as your next division to talk about. I've felt for years we really didn't have a recreation department. A couple craft fairs through the year is not a recreation department. I know of what other recreation departments offer in terms of hiking and kayaking and, trails and, robust programs. We can discuss what this one is in a moment, but I'm glad to hear you're about to make some changes because it needs to be. It's a do-over as far as I'm concerned for that department.
Yeah, I'd agree. That was probably the biggest thing I took from the budget myself was that you had made that switch with the rec, program coordinator, full-time to rec. And I'd be more than willing to help in any way. I'm involved in 5 or 6 different sports boards, and I run the soccer board. I'm on the treasurer for basketball, so we can definitely kibitz about that for sure.
I don't want to go doom and gloom, but as a senior member of the world and having some time on this planet, I just hope that Auburn doesn't place itself in a situation like the Renaissance Center if anybody studied that, they put a mall up in the middle of downtown Detroit because they wanted to add, and they wanted to add to commercial, they wanted to add to retail, they wanted to make a big building that was just going to just add so much life. And what it did was they put it at the end of Main Street in a business section. And anybody that watched the case study, as soon as the hotel and the whole building went up, all of the businesses from the street moved into the hotel, everything overtook, and now you see back from the 60s, the tumbleweeds and everything going up a few miles of Main Street and all the empty storefronts in the 60s and the 70s. And I'm not trying to be doom and gloom, but when you talk about enhancing and growing and contributing, we don't want to happen because 40 years ago, people learned how to swim at Camp Gleason. People learned how to swim in other areas, and these waterways have been been neglected. And then Lemansky Park went in, and now we put Packagug. And you really shouldn't be investing in Auburn and building these other areas only so that later they could fall into ill repair because a group of people let them go. And that's what happened with a lot of tax dollars back in the day in the 50s and the 60s in our budget when we spent money on Gleason. People that are my age now learned how to swim in those beaches. They lived here. That was their recreation. They had a whole community. And we can't even touch those resources anymore. You know, the investment to bring back. So, you know, we want to, you know, while we're on the topic, when you do this kind of growth, you don't want a Renaissance Center in the middle of Auburn. We're only 5 miles by 5 miles. So when we go to invest the money and go to work towards our parks and our recreation, let's not put things in place that aren't going to be sustainable. And that'll come up in light again when those conversations happen. But you want to give to the future. You want to protect it too.
It's a great point, Patrick, but sometimes something as simple as a simple dock that you can launch your kayak from is all you need. You don't need to build a new aquatic center to to launch from. So sometimes it's the simple fixes, really do have a big
Because
improvement.
and to the Pappases being so generous and kind, they did build quite a structure up there. And, is it fair that now the town's left to fund the whole thing? And I'm not saying that negatively. I'm just saying that, I'm sure it was done with a lot of thought. And the one thing I'm not in favor of, and it's happened a couple of times in town, is when we accomplish something and then someone new comes in to enforce change and they do it through a criticism. And I know that one of those criticisms came at the expense of the police station, because when the new fire station was going up, there were a couple of comments made that, possibly the police station needed improvement, and it was on the table that we were going to do a dual. And someone said, well, they just really didn't think when they did the police station. Well, that police station's 25 years old. And I'll tell you, when they thought about working on that police station, there were some really bright people on that board. They were given a list of asks. They were able to provide a building at the time that met all of the demand, and they grew out of it because nobody can see what the future is going to bring. So, and that goes to my point that you just want to make sure that as we're thinking of the future of Auburn and the integrity of all of this stuff, that we're not building, a big artsy center so that we can dive off of a pier. So I just wanted to mention that because I did do some business analysis through my education, and I did do it in areas of the nation where large investments and everything were put into place only to fail decades later.
Any other on this one?
I just wanted to segue into the recreational line. You mentioned Kristen Pappas's salary moving fully to the revolving. Is there money for the actual recreational activities in that revolving as well that we're not seeing? And can we talk about the change there? Because what I like to just my layman's eyes, I'm seeing that obviously her salary is gone, but we've only got about $14,000 for the full year of recreational budget, with 10,000 of that being for just the 4th of July. So can we just get a broader picture of what if we're talking about making her a full-time recreational person and having a full-time recreational responsibility, what her budget for that looks like and where that.
Aaron, did you want to touch on?
Sure. The recreation revolving has a balance of over $200,000, and that's generally where it stays. It's pretty consistent. There is Kristen's salary is $75,000, and there was a spreadsheet that went out that had the other financing sources on it. It had the yellow top on it, which shows, so her salary is $75,036. And a portion of it for this fiscal year was already being charged to the revolving account, and then the rest to the senior center. So there's a little bit of a difference in the transition there. But with also being able to expand the programs, we'll probably be able to get in program fees. So I think with the balance that we have now, that, everything's gonna work well and it's pretty healthy. I don't know if the town manager wants to add anything to it.
Yeah, I guess I'm looking more for I don't want to hold you to a hard and fast number, but it doesn't, because it's in there, and I don't think I have that right in front of me right now, but just getting an understanding for what her her budget looks like, because I don't think we see it.
No,
It
you're
was
you're
another
right.
piece I just don't have in front of me.
Through the chair. So one of the things that Karen and I were trying to do in this budget was obviously what you see, we're trying to make changes, we're trying to be more transparent. And one of the things that right before we sent it out was to outline the other funding sources and outline, like, in this case, the recreation revolving account, what that looks like, what comes from there. The majority of her programs come from the rec revolving account. She has money going in and out, managed through the department and the treasurer's office. We have summer programs like the camp, that money comes in and out. That's where she purchases her supplies. It all has to go through her department head, and that's how it's all done. But one of the things we want to do for next year is peel back the onion a little bit more on those things, funding sources. So when you look at the DPW budget, for instance, and you look at recreation, you're going to see all her expenses, and then you'll see an offset on the bottom that's coming. It's not tax levy, it's recreation. So that's one of the areas that we weren't able to get to this year, but you're absolutely right. When you look at the budget, you cannot even see your salary. And that's when we realized, we're like, oh, we've got to do it differently than it's been done in the past. So she has multiple programs year round. What I saw with Kristen is, and she does a great job, is that she was torn between the senior center and recreation. Like I said before, there are so many opportunities for recreation, and some of them don't cost anything. We have Camp Gleason. She had a, I think it was, like a flower arrangement type class that she had down there that generated income that didn't cost us anything. And people loved it and they want to come back again. So those types of things, whether it's kids or adults, are what we want to bring to the town. So we will be more detailed next time. It is all through the revolving account.
I guess we're on to the recreation, and I've never liked the way that the events are outlined in the budget. So, because it's in other budgets. So the larger portion of probably like the 4th of July is public safety driven. So it really, in my mind, there should be 4th of July with a subcategory of public safety costs that are in the recreation budget instead of being sort of tucked into overtime costs in the police and fire budgets. We should be able to look at the budget and say, what is the cost for that event? It's this amount of money. It's funded in different places, whether it's one department bills back the other or how it's accounted for, but it's deceiving when you look and say, oh, the 4th of July only cost us $6,000. That's not the case for that event.
No, it's not. And it's a good point. And it also, in areas where there are shared resources. So if we have to charge a different department, like if one department works and does something for another department and they pay each other, all that will also be shown in the budget as well. And that's a perfect example of just the transparency that we want. We need to keep it in this scenario. We need to keep it in the police department budget because that's their overtime budget, but it doesn't mean we can't show a cost of what the actual cost of like the basketball tournaments or some of the of course, 4th of July, but some of the other programs that we have so that people know what the cost actually is for these. So it's more like a cost analysis that we can definitely do. And I think we should do that as part of some of our meetings that we have with the Board of Selectmen. We have department heads come in and division heads, and they talk a little bit about some of the things that they do. And perhaps we should do that with finance as well, because it gives you an opportunity to learn more about what they do, the public an opportunity to learn more about what they do, and also talk about the costs of what they do as well. So it's a very good point.
Dory, just while you're there, if I could just offer a suggestion, since you're going to cross-reference numbers and you want to make sure that they stay, I just wanted to offer a suggestion that possibly when you give us the detail in the budget, that you italicize the numbers in the summary, and that way we might say that, well, these are italicized so we know they're coming from another source. That's
a good point. And I think the italicize and just an indirect cost, like have it say indirect costs so that it's clear what it is, because.
It's clear that it's
Yeah.
not part of the, just a suggestion.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Any other questions on recreation? Cemetery budget, anything to touch upon there? Seems like they largely agreed upon numbers.
Yes, no, nothing of note. There hasn't been any changes.
Any questions on cemetery?
Just to put it on the record, cemetery, we also have a perpetual care account. How much of this is from that account versus tax levy? Are all of these expenses coming straight out of tax levy?
Tax levy.
Just wanna make- What does perpetual care actually pay for?
So we've requested, we've appropriated funds from perpetual care through town meeting. So we've purchased columbariums, equipment, basically maintenance, mostly maintenance, not the columbariums.
And it is funding the cemetery CIP, the perpetual care.
Patrick?
There was the last couple of years, Karen, actually through the chair to Karen, the last couple of years, there's been a transfer mid-year for some time that we're covering. Is that included in the budget now so that we won't be doing a transfer? Or is that something that's isolated year to year that you don't know until you get there to transfer the money for?
I think it was time away in December.
Oh, okay, yes.
I'm just curious if you've incorporated that into the budget or if it's something you'd be coming on a regular basis.
Yeah, it is not incorporated
It's not,
into
so
the
we,
budget.
if that
Correct,
should reveal itself, we'll have to do a transfer again this year.
correct. Yes.
I have to ask a silly question, but how do we use heating oil at a cemetery?
For the building,
It was a cemetery building? I didn't-
yes.
Any other questions? Move on to sewer. Final division of the Department of Public Works.
So, this is relatively straightforward. We will be amending the Upper Blackstone, line item. The assessment is actually gonna go down, by, I believe, about $75,000. So we'll be reducing that number.
Which one's going down by 45?
The, about $75,000 from the Upper Blackstone assessment.
Biggest one.
The biggest one.
They are, they're using some free cash and stabilization funds to fund some of their budget, so less on the communities.
Where are we? We have multi-year contracts with Upper Blackstone, right? What year are we in? And
So Upper Blackstone, we don't have, so we have a place on the board of the Upper Blackstone, so it's part of.
Is their rate solely set on volume, or is it?
Yes.
But the rate is what is adjusted by the board, determined by the
So,
board?
so the rates are, so the Upper Blackstone calculates each community's share by a 3-year average of the flow rates. So they take flow rates of each community, and then basing on, looking at the budget, for the next fiscal year, it's divided up by the percentage of flow.
And remind me, I think it was a couple years back, we were in negotiations for another community that was flowing through our system in order to get to,
Oxford, sorry.
and is that, are we in agreement as to where that is now? And
So we will be renewing that, that agreement as well. So we are in negotiations with that.
just, so they pay a fee in order to get
Yes.
through our town?
So yes, they're connected to our sewer, and there's a meter there, that we get readings from, so we know how much sewage is coming from Oxford, and they're billed based on that.
And that goes, that fund from that contract goes into our account, the sewer account. Sewer-related questions, anybody? No?
Can I offer one thing about your question on the retained earnings? I've lived in the enterprise fund for the last 10 years, operating different water sewer enterprise funds. My understanding is the main reason you can't take enterprise funds, retained earnings, and put them into the regular tax levy is because you could artificially influence your rates to impact certain classes of, say, businesses in town, overcharge them and use that to offset your tax rate. So I think that's why Mass General law is extremely specific that whatever is generated in that enterprise fund must remain there and not get used on anything else other than operations.
I agree with you, but I think that law it's created around utilities, and the golf course certainly doesn't fall under that. It's not a public need. It's not the same kind of,
Maybe we just expand the golf course all over the town.
you know.
Let's put in a mini golf course in every park. I just solved it, guys.
That's great.
It's nice to meet everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So we're all set on sewer. We were not going to take the,
We're not going to vote.
we're not going to vote on anything tonight till we get some amended and clear and double check, triple checked numbers. Is everybody okay with that relative to holding off on any sort of vote on?
Sure.
I just apologies for being the stick in the mud. Like, to me, it looks like there's like around 90, maybe more $1,000 that are in the budget that is double counted. Can we at least consider ways to, that's the budget. That's what you guys thought DPW needed, right? Can we consider ways that money might be used for the same purpose? I mean, that's like 20 feet of road at least.
So through the chair,
Mike's driving.
in conversations with our chief financial officer, there is a discrepancy between, it looks like it's doubled in the backup compared to the front page. We'll work that out. We'll get you the amount. The finance committee has every right to come back to me and make recommendations on anything that you want in any department. We will get you the new updated numbers, and you'll see the old one and you'll know the difference. We'll talk to you about it and you can decide what you'd like to do and just let me know.
Trevor, was that a, no? That was
No, just an itch.
That was an itch,
Sorry.
okay. Do you want to discuss CIP while we've got you here? We're not going to vote on it tonight, but relative to things that you have on CIP? Do you have your copy?
I do.
Where are you starting, just so we're on the same, is your first one fleet maintenance?
I do, yes.
Do you want to just go quickly over each one as you go? So fleet maintenance,
So, we had, fleet maintenance for this year. We have one item, and that's garage improvements. There's several things that we need to address, but, that's been, an ongoing, item that was funded.
is that something that's being done, is that outside work that's being done? Or is that facilities work with supplies for them to do? Or what type of improvements are?
So, currently, we're looking at, a drainage ditch, not ditch, but,
In front of the doors, is that the,
it's in the middle of the garage. So,
So they
there's
can
a
work
drain
under the
going.
vehicles.
I'm sorry?
So they can work under the vehicles, is that? No?
Any water, any ice that melts, is going into there, into a, oil water separator. So that, it's disintegrating, so that needs to be rebuilt. There's some safety improvements that we're also working on that are needed. And we're just always looking to improve. We moved some equipment around just to make it a little bit more efficient.
I know last year you had mentioned electrical upgrades, which I think was the same line item and the same amount. Have we done those? Are they like, where are we at from that perspective?
So we-
We put 60,000 to last year. Have we used it? Is it?
So there's a combination of funds, and there's also, it also ties into some improvements with the overall HVAC improvements in town. So we had to upgrade our panel, that's in the works. So there's work being done, but it's at the initial stages.
Move on to the engineering division. It looks like you had requested money for a street sweeper, and the town manager didn't recommend that. But then landfill improvements and dam improvements, can you touch upon what
Sure.
those are?
So landfill improvements, we met with DEP last fall, and we had a recommendation that a third party, or requirement, we just got a letter from DEP maybe a month or two ago, that we need a third party inspection that's required to see where the landfill stands with respect to overgrowth of trees, what the health of the cap is. We've been monitoring. We have a consultant that monitors they do gas monitoring and groundwater monitoring, but they're looking to see if there's anything that's wrong with the cap. And I know that there are trees that have been kind of growing in, so we're gonna have to have some tree removal. So I know that at least is gonna need to be done. But moving forward, based on what the recommendations of the third-party inspection is, I'm assuming we're gonna need to spend more money, but this would be at least a start, just because I didn't know what the status was until after the CIP was due. So I wanted to at least start on any improvements that we can make.
Is that, this might be a dumb question, is that like a perpetual responsibility? Like, does it ever get better at any point in the future, or like?
Mother Nature ever take it
Yeah,
back?
why don't we just let the trees grow and see what happens? I mean, like,
So the
it's a
cap,
dumb question, and I'm being sarcastic, and I apologize.
no, so the cap needs to stay intact. If you have the trees growing, it would,
It's gas or whatever.
yes, so it would allow the contaminants out to the environment.
Just on street sweeper, so it looks like you requested, but it's gonna be, the start of the purchase would be for next year, is that it's gonna be pushed off to next year? And is that two streets, how much, I'm trying to read that 3 years of 75 and then 31 is 165, is that replacing two of the street sweepers over the
Yes.
course of that?
So what I was trying to do in the FY '27 street sweeper account, I was trying to move the replacement of the street sweeper earlier than next year. Just not going to be able to do that, so we'll continue forward with what we have. So we'll replace one of them in FY '28 and then the other one in FY '31.
Dam improvements?
So the way that I approach this is we have 4 dams, and they're different categories, but for all 4, we need to have an inspection done, whether it's every 2 years, every 5 years, or 10 years, depending on the criticality of the dam. And we have recommendations of improvements and general cost estimate of how much those improvements would cost to bring the dam up to a good condition. They're currently in fair condition. We certainly don't want it to go down to any worse than that, but
It's currently in fair condition.
fair. So I looked at what it would require to upgrade all of the dams to good condition, and I divided it up into a 5-year plan.
I know this is one that sort of gets some media coverage, is dams in general across the state, and whether there's state funding to maintain these dams, and there's even conversations out there as to why some of these dams were put in the first place, and whether they should be just dismantled and let it go back to, again, bring Mother Nature back in the conversation, just let it go back to where it was. So I'm sure you're monitoring all that, because, I mean, it does have a significant cost perpetually to keep these up to standard, so they don't just let go and, have some catastrophic downstream failure,
Yes.
as opposed to being, if they were to be eliminated, to be however you eliminate a dam, I imagine it's a gradual process to do it the right way.
So I don't know if there is an appetite in removing any dams, just because the residents that bought the house next
Right,
to.
I'm not saying that in particular. I don't know where they're located.
Yes.
I'm just, in watching
On Kevin Street.
Typically,
bottom of the hill, so they potentially could.
So, the dams that we have are mostly for recreational purposes. So the dams that are water supply, the ponds that we have water supplies on are owned by the water district. But yes, we are applying for dams.
So there are other dams that are not owned by the town. So there's 4 that are owned by the town, and then others that are owned by the respective districts for their.
Yes, for the Auburn Water District. But we just applied for a grant for Leesville pond repairs. So we're always looking for funding sources for that.
All the more reason to build up our recreation. If we're paying money to maintain the dams for recreation, we should be using that waterways for recreation. Okay. Just to try and get through all the drainage, looks like it's an ongoing one. We discussed that. We discussed the roadways. Just looking for new ones that are for 27. Was agreed upon the 6-wheel dump plow, 95,000. I'm sorry, Patrick.
Just, I'm not sure because we're going down to Highway Division. Is the Highway Division the vehicle that clears the sidewalks during the storms?
Yes, so we have sidewalk tractors.
Is that what it- the sidewalk tractor?
Yes.
I just live on a street with a lot of children that are going to school these days. And since December, no, that tractor was never seen on our roads.
Okay.
So is that one of the vehicles that was sort of in repair during the winter?
No, so we typically clear the sidewalks that are closest to the schools, but I can look into what road, we can talk about which road you live on and look into, what.
I'm less than a half a mile away from 3 schools.
So
That's
there
why
should
it
be-
usually has been something that's popped up, and this year, we shoveled all our own sidewalks, and there are a few people that obviously weren't able to do it, so, or snow blow, depending on. I just noticed the vehicle. We just never saw it on the street, so I'm speaking up on behalf of,
No.
the precinct and the neighborhood.
Absolutely. We have so the employees that plow are also, would stay after the storm and clear the sidewalks. We have one veteran employee and one new employee, and I'm not sure how the work was divided and if he just wasn't aware that there was a sidewalk there. If there was any, I'm not sure if it was
Just
reported, but.
curious, my question was more, are there any in repair? And it says 4-year plan, but it doesn't really say, and you're not getting another one in your CIP until fiscal year 2031. So I would think in 90 roads, you'd have more than one sidewalk tractor.
We do have more than one. We have 2 that usually go out, but it's typically the employees that are, that we're lacking because everybody's tired, so they don't really want to stay. And sometimes they'll go home, get some sleep and come back for, to get the sidewalks done overnight so that they're ready for school the next day. But it's the employees and the volunteers that, want to come back on off hours, but,
Because and again, it wasn't to bring attention to my precinct, it was just that in years past, it has happened, we've seen them, and then I know this year, we got whacked one storm after another, you had down equipment, so I was really expecting when I asked for you to say, yes, those were part of the hardware that, the equipment that had to be repaired.
we've had equipment down, but they've been back up, so, they might not, the newer employee might not have been aware that there was a sidewalk.
So it does seem like there was one that was a revised 27 for a sidewalk tractor. looks like, so that's an additional one that's going through. Anything else? Anything else on this one that we need to look over? Sewer division? These are typically for 27.
No, it's consistently just, investment in the
System, right?
Cemetery.
Cemetery? There's a word there that I don't know what it is, but I'm,
There is a columbarium for $50,000, and it's basically, if somebody has cremains from a loved one that they don't want to buy a plot, there's an above-ground structure that you can put a plaque on and have
we
the.
currently have.
We have one, but it's getting filled.
And that perpetual fund will fund some of the CIPs for cemetery? Is that, you said that earlier, is that correct?
So yes. Yes.
Is that everything for?
We have parks and.
One more page, parks and.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah, parks, so 1-ton plow. So there's some Pappas stuff for 27, which, is that so the baseball field and the soccer field are scheduled to be started for this?
So we'll be putting a bid package together and going out to bid for those.
Can I just ask on the, if it's 4-year LP, is the plan to start the work and pay for it in 4 years? Or are we setting aside money for 4 years and this won't happen until 2030?
No, I would expect that would be borrowed money that would be available to start the work.
So we should expect next year that Andy's gonna.
I'll be happy.
Big smile on his face.
Yeah, for the ribbon cutting.
I'll be at the ribbon cutting.
Golf course mowers, again, these are all things that are here, but I believe they're all funded through that accounts as well.
Can I say something about the golf course again? It seems to me, and I don't, maybe Patrick might remember, but when the town used to rent out the golf course, and we were making we were getting like a $50,000 payment, and somebody else ran it and did everything. And I think that might be why we went to an enterprise fund, because when we took it over, we didn't know what we were getting into. We had no history of running a golf course. And I think that's why it was decided to be an enterprise fund.
I'm not sure. I know that it was a big undertaking and they were really conservative when they, the first, I think, decade, not even maybe 7 or 8 years, when they came in and we talked about it. Everybody was watching the budget really closely, and it did take a while to just get a pulse. I don't really remember the outsourcing of it, but I know that it was very carefully managed financially, and it obviously speaks for itself now.
So we were at one point actually getting money to the general fund from the course, but we basically just washed our hands of it.
So
Well, I think.
And he had like a 10-year
But
contract.
I think part of it
and got
was that
renewed
the
10 years.
agreement or the understanding was that the residents didn't want to have to support it in the fear that it could drain the town. So they forced it to take care of itself as a selling point to get it. They wanted it to be able to take care of itself, and they were all for it.
through the chair, I believe that the funds that we had were $30,000 a year, and unfortunately, the golf course wasn't maintained. So I know that I was sort of involved in the tail end of when Bill was negotiating with the vendor, and just basic maintenance just wasn't being done.
Yeah, it's much improved. I mean, it's night and day from before, so, for sure.
I just want to thank you guys for your patience tonight. This was a slog, so I really appreciate you guys sticking it out.
typical meeting for budget. I mean, they're all like this.
Pepper's missed a lot, remember?
I've been through short meetings, I've been through long meetings, and I've seen my fair share of spats amongst the group, but I appreciate you guys hanging in there and being patient, and I know we had a lot of questions, so guys,
A lot of them were overall budget stuff, but they do all intertwine at the end, so.
comes from
We
a
have the
place of
best
love, I
department
promise.
heads in this town. We have the best department heads. Joining you've been with us a while.
Here, here.
Pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much for your support.
Hey,
Thank you. Thank you for your patience, too.
So the last item is just meeting minutes from February 26th. We have them in our packet tonight. Any questions?
I read them and they were good. I don't know if anybody else had a chance.
There's no issues, then we'll consider those to be accepted. Next meeting is for next week, the 18th. We'll have DDIS in here with all their various divisions. Anything to add, Karen, before we?
Is that
Second.
Thought I was going to do so moved. You told me, you beat me to it.
Go ahead.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.